Recording in progress. Recording in progress.
Very ముఖ్యంగా దేవరకొండ
Good afternoon, sir.
Good
Actually,
afternoon.
there were some technical hitches, so it got little late. So we are sorry for that.
Sarah's joined. Dr.
Yeah,
Mohan.
yeah.
Dr. Sudarshan.
Nice to see you all.
Good afternoon, everyone.
Good afternoon, everybody.
Hi, everybody.
యోగా
BNG.
Good afternoon. Good
Hello,
afternoon,
sir.
sir
How
and
are you?
madam.
Good afternoon.
Namaskar, sir. Dr. Gangadhar, sir.
everyone.
नमस्ते जी, नमस्ते नमस्ते।
सुनील मित्तल,
బర్త్డే విష్ చేస్తావా
माजिद भाई भी है, ठीक है, everybody is there.
Namaste.
Dr.
Hi.
Vidya,
Good afternoon.
Sada.
Good afternoon.
అందరికి రిటర్న్ వాయిస్
Good afternoon, sir. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon, Gangu. Good afternoon, sir.
Good afternoon, Najit.
Dr. Murthy also joined. Thank you, sir.
Good afternoon, Gangadhar sir, and good afternoon, Dada.
Namaste, namaste. Dr. Gangadhar, sir. Good afternoon. Namaskaram andi. Namaskaram andi.
Hi, Mohan.
Thank you.
Brigadier, sir. Namaste.
Namaste, sir. Good afternoon, all of you, sir.
ఆల్రెడీ 35 మెంబర్స్ జాయిన్ అయ్యారు.
So, sir, shall we, Professor Gangadhar sir and Dr. Saha sir, shall we start?
Yes,
Madam
madam.
is
You can go ahead. Start.
చేసేవంతా కదా
Ma'am was waiting for a long time to ma'am, you're well. Okay. So,
అట్లా అంటావు మంచిగా ఉంటే ఇది తిరగట్లేదు ఏంది ఆటో రొటేట్
is Pratima ma'am here? Pratima Murthy ma'am here?
మూర్తి
She was,
బెంగళూరు
She is here. She is here. She
she's
is
here now. She was waiting. That's it. Yeah, thank
Yes,
you.
ma'am.
Thank you. Well, a very good afternoon to everyone and greetings from the SAARC
ఇది
Psychiatric
ఆటో
Federation.
రొటేట్ ఎక్కడ నాకు చూపించు ఆప్షన్
We have everyone else muted. Host, please kindly mute everyone. Let me mute everyone, please.
అటు తిరగాలి కదా. ఇది దూరం అవుతుంది
Can we mute everyone and then we can start? People can unmute. A very good afternoon to everyone. Greetings from the SAARC Psychiatric Federation, along with warm greetings from the WPA section of Religion, Spirituality and Psychiatry, Asian Federation of Psychiatrists Association, Indian Association of Private Psychiatry, and Indian Association of Biological Psychiatry. We are here today to observe the International Yoga Day, which officially is on the 21st of June. But as always, this is the second Sunday and always a very special day because it also happens to be the Father's Day. So greetings to everyone on this very special occasion of Father's Day. And we will be observing together a very important topic of humanity, which is the theme of today's present International Yoga Day. We've already started slightly late, so I will not take much time, but I will now first invite Dr. Gautam Saha, who is the president of the SAARC Psychiatric Federation, to welcome everyone. Over to you, Dr. Saha, sir. Thank you.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, the respected senior colleagues, and my dear friends. You know that this year the theme for the International Day of Yoga 2023 is Yoga for Vasundhara Kutumbam, aptly described our aspiration for one earth, one family, and one future. You know that yoga is a practice that has been around the thousands of years and originating in ancient India. It is a holistic approach to the physical, mental, and spiritual well-being and has become increasingly popular around the year, especially in the recent years. The philosophy of yoga is based on the concept of oneness, that is unity, which expressed in the Sanskrit word yoga and itself meaning union. And this concept of oneness extends beyond the individuals to the entire universe and includes all living beings, regardless of race, religion, nationality, or gender. So this idea of oneness is at core of the message, one earth, one family, and one future. You know that yoga can help people to develop a deeper understanding and appreciation of the interconnectedness and to cultivate a sense of compassion and empathy towards the others. Though the practice of yoga, individual can learn to connect with their own inner being, which can lead to a greater sense of inner peace and harmony. This is in turn can lead to a more positive interaction and others a greater sense of responsibility towards the planet and all innovations. In the essence, the practice of yoga can help to foster a sense of global citizenship and a commitment to creating a more just and equitable world. It encourages the individuals to take a responsibility for their own well-being and to work towards the well-being of others as well as the planet as a whole. By embracing this philosophy of oneness and practice of yoga, we can work towards more peaceful, harmonious, and sustainable future for all. So from the SAARC, I can say it is really great opportunity to meet you not only online, but it is definitely from these auspicious day. We are really grateful to our patron, the chairperson of this committee, Dr. B.N. Gangadhar, and also the co-chairperson to this organizing committee, also Dr. Kishan, and the most active dynamic lady of this SAARC Psychiatric Federation. For her, actually, we are doing so much of work on behalf of SAARC is definitely Dr. Rajashree Ray and our convener also from Sri Lanka. SAARC is also very active. And it is not only that, it is a full team of SAARC, and especially today's MOC is Dr. Sharmishta Chakraborty and Dr. Nishka Sinha is with us. And I hope that all the seniors people like Dr. Sudarshan, Dr. E. Mohandas, my guru, and Dr. Gambhira, Dr. Alim Siddiqui, Dr. Ajit Bide, the past president of the Indian Psychiatric Society, my elder brother, Dr. Abdul Majid, my brother, Dr. Sunil Mittal, Dr. Pratima Murthy, Dr. G.V. Ramana Rao, all these senior people, Dr. Murthy, Dr. Mohan Isaac, and definitely Devanjan Pan, and all the senior psychiatrists are with us with this program. I am really blessed, and please keep blessing. Thank you so much. And I think I should not take much more time for the inauguration, and over to the Rajashree, please.
Thank you so much, sir. Without your leadership, your inspiration, this program wouldn't have even been 40% of the success. But as we all know, Dr. Saha is the lead person behind and inspires us all. And on this note, I would now like to request the address from our chief guest, who's none other than Professor Afzal Javed, sir, who is the president of the World Psychiatric Association, support of constant motivation and inspiration for all of us. Sir has kindly sent his welcome message on the video. Chandan, kindly play sir's message as the chief guest for this conference. Sound is not. Chandan, please restart and play with the sound. Still can't hear. Host, still can't hear.
Ma'am, it is in full sound, 100% sound.
Technical glitches. The most of the important thing is Professor Afzal Javed with us always and encourages us like anything. We are really grateful on behalf of SAARC Psychiatric Federation. So I think we can proceed, Rajashree, if they can rectify their problem, then we can play this. Go ahead, please, Rajashree.
Yes, sir. We will rectify the problem in the background. In the meantime, we actually have with us our guest of honor, none other than the director of NIMHANS, Professor Madam Pratima Murthy. Ma'am, we would like you to share with us your words and give us the blessings for this program.
Thank you very much, Dr. Rajashree and Dr. Saha. It's a pleasure to be amidst you all this afternoon. And it's a wonderful program that has been laid up.
Possibly ma'am is mute.
No, I'm.
We can
audio is
faintly
on.
hear you, ma'am, but I think speaker is a
Sound
bit
is there,
away
but
from your
low
mic is a
volume,
bit
ma'am.
low volume.
Just give me a second to see if I can do anything about the audio settings. Yeah, is that better now?
Exactly.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
Right now it's okay.
All right. So I just wanted to say it's a great pleasure to be amidst everyone today and to have everyone come together. Several associations come together, the SAARC Psychiatric Federation, the WPA section on religion, spirituality and psychiatry, the Asian Federation of Psychiatrists Association, the Indian Association of Private Psychiatry and the Indian Association of Biological Psychiatry, especially for this theme. For the last few years, I know Dr. Saha and colleagues have been active in trying to bring together various people all over particularly psychiatrists from all over the region to be trained in yoga practices. We also, of course, at NIMHANS, all of you know that we have a department of integrative medicine, which was initiated by Dr. Gangadhar and colleagues, and which has now become an inspiration for all India Institute of Medical Sciences in the country to actually begin departments where you look at the teaching and learning of yoga. There are also a lot of training programs which have been started to get people to do formal training. It's a bit of a sad story that this popularity for yoga actually, has occurred firstly in other countries, and now in terms of a proper, an approach towards prevention as well as interventions for mental disorders, that it's gaining popularity now. But I think it's a wonderful framework in which to set holistic health in. We know that there is really no mental health without physical health, and yoga really brings together all the concepts of mental as well as physical well-being. The program that has been laid out today is really wonderful, and I know it looks at, of course, yoga and mental health. It later on talks about the neurobiology of yoga, the relationship between yoga and spirituality. How do you integrate, spirituality and yoga and psychiatry? Also talks about mindfulness and indeed yoga as a science of inner well-being and the solution to many challenges in life. So the other important thing is that, of course, there are a lot of studies which have looked at the way yoga works, but I think it's more important to understand yoga beyond just maybe the asanas and the pranayamas, to yoga as a way of life. And I'm sure we'll be talking about that. The motto of NIMHANS, which I presently lead, is Samatvam Yoga Uchyate. So really, how do you develop a sense of self, a sense of equanimity of self? I think using the path that yoga teaches us is very important. So on one hand is the science of yoga, and on the other is the practice of a good way of life, which enables us not only to deal with stress, but to improve our well-being, improve our resilience, and indeed, as Rajashree mentioned, improve our sense of oneness and humanity. So as we go forward, I wish this program all success, and I'm sure it will be the beginning of a lot of dialogue on a variety of ways in which we can understand yoga better, apply yoga better, and teach yoga better, so that we can have this as a universal and a global, method of interventions, both for mental well-being as well as for mental illnesses. Thank you very much for having me, and I wish the program all success. Back to you, Rajashree.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you so very much always for your ever inspiring and lovely words. And I'm sure we've got the right set now. We will work on Dr. Afzal Javed sir's video if we can. Otherwise, it's been summarized. So now we will straight move on to the first talk. As you know, this program is being divided into talks, individual talks and panel discussions, so that we can get a flavor of most of the topics around spirituality, yoga, meditation, and especially on the humanity. But a yoga program organized from India can never start without the guru, as we say, Professor B.N. Gangadhar. So now may I invite our chairpersons, Professor Sudarshan Pradhan from Nepal, and also Dr. G.V. Ramana Rao sir from India, to kindly take over the session. Over to you, chairpersons, please. Thank you. Please share Professor B.N. Gangadhar's CV slide.
Sir, shall I start?
Yes, sir. Go ahead. Go ahead.
Yeah. It's really an honor to chair this session on yoga and mental health by Professor Dr. B.N. Gangadhar, the former director of NIMHANS, Bangalore. As Madam Pratima has told, Dr. Gangadhar and team of researchers from the Department of Integrative Medicine, NIMHANS, had contributed immensely in establishing the role of yoga in the prevention and treatment of spectrum of mental health disorders, starting from stress, anxiety, depression, bipolar disorders, psychosis, and beyond. He left no stone unturned in the promotion of yoga as an important tool in the management of various psychiatric disorders. Indian subcontinent, as our president, Dr. Saha, was talking about, has given this wonderful gift of yoga to the rest of the world. And it's for the promotion of wellness and for the prevention of illness at all levels, both physical and mental, absolutely free of cost. I'm sure Dr. Gangadhar is going to elaborate on his expertise in the field of yoga and mental health, from basic neuroscience to clinical application. So thank you very much. And I request Dr. Pradhan to proceed before Dr. Gangadhar starts his speech.
Thank you, sir. First of all, I would like to wish the best wishes for this webinar day of the Yoga Day, at a great day. And on this webinar, I would like to thank Dr. Gautam Shah, Dr. Rajashree Ray, and all the participants who have been here. And definitely we'll start our speaker, Professor Dr. Gangadhar. Sir, can we proceed, sir?
Yes, sir. We can start. Let me share my slides with the permission of the chair. Here it is. Sorry, this is the wrong slide. Okay. At the outset, I'm quite blessed that two of my senior colleagues are also in this audience. Dr. Murthy was my teacher, and so also was Dr. Mohan Isaac. At the outset, also in this audience was Dr. Mohan Isaac. Can I start? Maybe there was some glitch. Is it okay? I can continue? Yes, sir. You continue, sir. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. So, with pranams to my teachers and all the illustrious colleagues who are available on the program today, and with best wishes to everyone for the International Day of Yoga for the 23, the theme humanity. Let me thank the organizers of the SAARC meeting who have called me to speak on yoga and mental health in this talk. I also hold a post of Professor Emeritus at the NIMHANS in the Department of Integrative Medicine. And also I am supported partly by the National Distinguished Scientist Chair by the Department of Ayush. So let me acknowledge both these organizations for helping me to continue my work on integrative medicine, yoga in particular. So the International Day of Yoga, as we know, began
some years ago, almost 8 years ago, and with a massive program which happened in the Rajpath in New Delhi, which the Honorable Prime Minister inaugurated, and that was quite sensational program that happened, and I was lucky enough to participate in this program at that time. And after that, and from the day itself, for that matter, yoga programs, mass yoga activities have been going on all over the world, across faiths and across different cultures. So Yoga Day is now going to be observed in our country 3 days down the line on 21st, with multiple groups hosting mass yoga programs. And for this present day's program, I congratulate Dr. Gautam Saha and his team, the SAARC, for putting up this program to commemorate the International Day of Yoga. Congratulations, Gautam, for making this possible. Also on a Sunday, so most of us could join because 21st happens to be Wednesday, working day, to tight a program, and we probably would be tired after the initial day of yoga activities in the morning. So congratulations once again. When you very well said what I wanted to say, yoga is a word which means blending, connecting, merging one's personal consciousness with that universal consciousness. The transcendence to merge with that larger universal consciousness is what is yoga means to achieve. And very well said by Dr. Pratima Murthy, that it is a spiritual lifestyle. And of course, it is not merely asanas or postures that we generally see on popular videos related to yoga. It is much more, and it is a continuous practice of this spiritual lifestyle until I achieve perfection. And we don't know how many of us would ever indeed achieve this final stage of samadhi or transcendence to connect ourselves and merge with that cosmic consciousness. But of course, all of us are at different levels. We are progressing, and this is not just one-time practice, but it is a sadhana, which is a continuous practice with the day-to-day progress in what we wanted to achieve as part of this lifestyle. So how is it relevant to mental health? And it's very important that we look at this, as was rightly said, wherever yoga is alluded to, it relates to mental health, mind. And in fact, the yoga is a manual for mental health, psychology, description in particular, abnormal psychology, and also, of course, various applied psychology, which will lead to improvement in our mental health and psychological well-being. So all are coming together, and I would even say that modern psychological training cannot be complete without teaching yoga psychology as well. Or for that matter, many psychological descriptions and books, schools of thought in our subcontinent, which have come from Bhagavad Gita to a host of other literature. Enough to mention that the first mention of yoga comes in Yoga Vasishta in 7000 BC or even earlier, and where it says, Mana Prashamano Payaha iti yoga. What makes my mind fine, well-being of the mind is yoga. And as was rightly pointed out by Dr. Pratima Murthy, the logo of NIMHANS has this statement, Samatvam Yoga Uchyate. Equanimity is yoga. And that we achieve that equanimity, the ups and downs even out, and it goes on, and we reach that Sthita status. And of course, a host of other things that have been described in yoga. But yoga again relates to this feeling of equanimity, again mind, which was described in Gita in 5000 BC. And then the first description of yoga manualized to modern world comes from Patanjali, the Patanjali Yoga Sutras, where he would say yoga chitta vritti nirodha. That is oscillations in my mind thoughts is what would yoga is expected to achieve. And if we can control it on our own, and we would probably become better yogis. And summarizing, yoga and mind are inseparable. Study of mental health cannot be complete without studying yoga and its psychology described in Patanjali Sutras and many other texts. And while I looked up what literature has occurred, just to quote, of course, there are many more literature, but yoga and mental health, when you search in PubMed, close to 900 articles appear. But what is interesting is almost 95% of the research comes in the last 20 years. For that matter, almost 80% comes in last 5 years. So that is a testimony to say rapidly growing interest in studying yoga with respect to mental health for whatever may be the reason, whether we have been attracted to those positive effects of yoga, or is it because the challenges that we face when we use the modern scientific concepts of mental health to applications in mental health care have had various limitations. And so we are now going to yoga as another means of getting us better. Both are possible though, although I would want to send this message that in the recent years, there has been a surge of interest with respect to yoga applications. And no wonder the work which has accumulated has led to meta-analysis. For example, in major psychiatric disorders, we have data that overall yoga helps. Although a couple of outlier studies which show a negative result, but by and large, you would find that the yoga benefits are good enough for purpose of utilization. In particular, some conditions, diagnostic conditions, for example, depression, here we have seen that yoga is beneficial with respect to, when you compare it with treatment as usual, relaxation, or when you compare it with even aerobic exercises, yoga performs better in terms of reducing the depressive symptoms. And it's also in more recent studies, people have examined yoga as a monotherapy in mild to moderate depression, seems to have potential benefits even when compared to placebos or other and existing treatments. Together, yoga probably is entering the mainstream of mental health care, at least in depression for sure. We have, of course, yoga being applied to anxiety disorders. Although the meta-analysis, the effect is not very strong, but nonetheless, there is effect of positive benefits of yoga in anxiety disorders. Likewise, post-traumatic stress disorder is another condition where overall yoga seems to produce benefits in people who have been exposed to those conditions. Apart from this meta-analysis, we have to understand how mental health, leave the illness apart. Being psychiatrists, we obviously are first exposed to illness conditions where we would like to see whether yoga has benefit. But yoga also has a deeper spiritual meaning. As I said, it is a spiritual way of life. And so the first description itself is to connect the consciousness, personal to the cosmic consciousness. In this process of achieving this final target, or the so-called final connection, in quote, we would be facing or experiencing many behavioral consequences of feeling connected, and as a forerunner to the final impact. So I would perhaps connect myself to others so that I becomes us and that me becomes we, well described in the very first speech on the first yoga day by the Honorable Prime Minister. He said, you do Shirshasana, the me becomes we. literally so. You're going to see that we in that me. I'm able to see myself in others is a description which many other people say who, when they practice yoga, start feeling for others. Very typically, it is said, Atmavat Sarva Bhuteshu Ya Pashyati Sapanditaha. That is, who is able to see himself in others' shoes is a person who would be the Pandita, who is an evolved person. And yoga leads to this transcendence or this what we may call evolved state of well-being and also growth of an individual. So coming back to this connectedness, which is an experience which is described, would I first connect myself with the neighboring consciousness? And if that happens, you would probably made a first step of feeling well, feeling togetherness, which was described by Dr. Gautam Saha in his inaugural speech. Yoga would, of course, do this. In fact, one of the third common experience that is reported in people who are practicing yoga, apart from I'm feeling de-stressed, relaxed, etc., I feel connected with others. I have a popular anecdote where an engineering student told me that why she was interested in yoga. The question I asked her, she said, you know, I feel well connected with my teacher, with those people who do practice yoga, with my family, with my relatives, with my classmates, people who are walking around in the city. I feel one with them, and you know, I'm not alone. I have no anxiety that people are there with me. And this is Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam. A teenager, college student is able to perceive this and speak like a Baba Ramdev or Sri Guruji who talk about Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam. If she can experience this, I'm sure many of us who may be practicing yoga more sincerely would also achieve this. So with this would lead to a growing compassion, feeling for others, and this feeling for others would make cohesiveness in the community better, and a peace would come along. And of course, the peace external would also mean that I am gaining internal peace. And testimony to this feeling connectedness as being beneficial comes from some research, qualitative observations, who have found that this feeling of connectedness actually is the root for they feeling coming out of depression and feeling better. And this has been described by one of the authors in a descriptive qualitative paper. And likewise, this connectedness also gets better in those disconnected minds of schizophrenia individuals, where the social cognition suffers. People cannot emote, cannot understand other people, cannot read others' faces in terms of their emotions. And the social cognition gets better when you practice yoga, even in this people who are affected with this condition. And we, of course, this is the third replicative study we are able to demonstrate that following yoga, the scores on the social cognition scale get actually better compared to those who are waitlisted individuals. So yoga connects, and that connectedness experience is something that patients with the depression refer to as a source of their getting better. And in schizophrenia individuals where they have lost this connectedness, and as evidenced by lack of social cognition, the social cognition itself gets better. And a mother told me that, you know, after practicing yoga for more than a year, the person who was affected, who had a schizophrenia illness, can return to many of the social functioning roles, and also the bonding with the mother improved. And she said, "You have given back my son." A very apt description of what happens when an individual continues to practice yoga. And in these individuals who have such severe conditions such as schizophrenia. And of course, all these effects don't happen merely are measurable more objectively, not merely simply reported by the patients or the families. For example, one of the conditions that we see that happen following yoga practice is increases in levels of the cuddling hormone oxytocin. Oxytocin is low, of course, in schizophrenia. There are people who have demonstrated this. Low also in people who are affected with autism and autism spectrum disorder. And in fact, nasal oxytocin or nasal nebulization with oxytocin has been used for some conditions such as schizophrenia and autism. And instead of an exogenous oxytocin, practice of yoga would facilitate endogenous oxytocin release. And this was demonstrated in another experiment at NIMHANS. And we believe that this has recently been partly replicated with respect to the one of the gene expression studies, which I am yet to get the full analysis available for sharing with you at this point of time. So there are benefits from this spiritual practice, which are behaviorally expressed, and they can be seen to have roots in the biological transformation that is happening, increases in the levels of oxytocin, and also increase in the connectivity within the brain. The systems, the networks get actually better connected. One of the examples here is the default mode network, both anterior and posterior, which actually the coherence in the network gets better following use of yoga in these individuals with schizophrenia. Mind you, just to remind some of the people who are listening to this, that in schizophrenia individuals, this coherence in the default mode network is loose, and then with the practice of yoga, it gets better. This is one of the examples of a one of the patients who did yoga, and after 3 months and before and after it was compared, and we were able to demonstrate that improve in the coherence in the network that was possibly demonstrable. And this is, of course, the numerical values which are graphed significant statistically. But what is important here is the negative symptoms of this individual got better from before and after. And more importantly, the default mode network coherence was correlated with the improvements in the negative symptom score, although the positive symptom score actually did not change in these individuals. So that social cognition and that element of connectedness, which what we see behaviorally, also parallels even within our body, within our brain, where the networks get connected and become coherent even better. So I perhaps have shared some elements related to yoga, spirituality, humanity, connectedness, and their clinical applications, which we have been experiencing in its use. And it's a spiritual way of life. In summary, to say it helps spiritual growth and transcendence, well described in many other texts. And this change helps to develop compassion and connectedness. And the latter mediates an antidepressant effect, and also the improvement in social cognition in conditions where this is affected, for example, schizophrenia. And all these have biological basis with increases in oxytocin levels and increases and facilitation of intra-brain connectedness. So together, yoga practice as part of the yoga day, yoga day celebrations alone may not be limited, and it could be taken to our clinical setting and put to use. And this is precisely what has happened, as Dr. Pratima said. What observations of yoga on our patient population, which we saw, motivated us to take this forward, and that evolved itself into the integrative medicine department. And thanks to the entire NIMHANS administration and the ministry, which helped us set this up. And of course, the future of its growth is also in the hands of all the colleagues who are there, with the able leadership of Dr. Pratima Murthy and the directors to come after this. Thank you very much. And I thank the organizers for letting me come over here and share these issues. And I also, of course, pranams to Goddess Saraswati, who has given this wisdom to me to be able to share with you. All this work, which I mentioned, happened in the then Yoga Center, which has now become the Integrative Medicine Department, a a photo of that. I'm showing it here. Thanks to all of you for listening to me. Any issues, any questions, please feel free to send it to me on this email address. Once again, I thank the chairpersons for introducing me, Dr. Raman Rao in particular, and of course, Dr. Pradhan, and the other colleagues who have made this event possible, and Dr. Gautam Saha in particular. Thank you very much.
Thank
Good
you, Dr. Gangadhar sir, for your excellent presentation as usual. And we are always inspired by your presentations, and we look forward for much more work from you in the future too. And now this topic is open for discussion. Any questions, please? Any chat box questions?
There are no questions in the chat box.
Okay. Then I'll ask my chairperson, Dr. Sudarshan Pradhan, to give his comments, please.
Thank you, sir, for presenting a wonderful presentation on the yoga and the mental health. Definitely, I personally also feel that the mental health and the yoga go concurrently, and it have a lot of benefits also. It's benefits like the physical benefit, mental benefit, and the spiritual benefit. We definitely used to get such type of benefit. In physical benefit, we create a strong body, improve their posture, to improve energy level, and to enhance the functioning of respiratory, digestive, and all the reproductive system and the cardiovascular system. It makes the strongness in the physical benefit. And in the psychological benefit, it definitely calm the mind and enhance the concentration, and to reduce the stress and anxiety and encourage positive thoughts. These are the facts that we used to get in the psychological benefit. And also the spiritual benefits are also very important to us, as we here in Indian subcontinent, that we do believe on these spiritual part, which makes us strong. And the healthy spiritual awareness and the promotion of interdependence between mind, body, and spirit. These are the facts that in this holy day of Yoga Day, we have to be very conscious about the mental health. In the mental health, when any person, when we are getting care of the patient, that we have to think about to start the yoga and all these exercises which promote the well-being of mental health. Thank you.
So thank you very much for the organizers for giving this wonderful opportunity. And I'll ask Dr. Rajashree to go ahead with the next proceedings. Thank you very much.
So I think Dr. Rajashree ma'am, she is not around. So I would take over the session. For the next sessions, what a better start it could have been than hearing from Dr. Gangadhar sir. And also we were blessed to have such wonderful chairpersons, Dr. Sudarshan sir, all the way from Nepal, and Dr. Ramana Rao sir. Really blessed to hear from both of you, sir. So we'll move now for the second talk for today. That is to understand the neurobiology of yoga, for which we have a very lead speaker, Dr. Bhaskar Mukherjee, with us. And we are blessed, what better it could have been than having chairpersons like Dr. Mohan Isaac, sir, all the way from Australia. And we always feel proud to share that sir is an alumni from NIMHANS Bangalore, so he is a part of us as well. And we have with him Dr. Ajit Bide, sir, our own very beloved IPS past president, as well as a consultant psychiatrist. I think we don't need many words to talk about sir. He's from Bangalore, India itself. So let me invite chairpersons to introduce our speakers.
I think, thank you very much, Niska. This is Dr. Mohan Isaac.
Yes,
Ajit and I spoke briefly how to go about. We know that we have a very, very rich afternoon with so many speakers. So for the best way of and most efficient way of using time, we have decided that Ajit will introduce the distinguished speaker, Dr. Bhaskar Mukherjee, since he has probably known him more than I have known. And then after that, our distinguished speaker will speak about the neurobiology of yoga. And then I will just conclude by making one or two sentences. So over to you, Ajit, my co-chairperson. Ajit.
Thank you, Dr. Mohan. It's a privilege to chair a session in an international conference like this with my teacher, Dr. Mohan Isaac. And it is my great pleasure to introduce our well-known speaker, Dr. Bhaskar Mukherjee. Bhaskar means the sun, and this is the shining sun from Kolkata. Bhaskar, I asked him to write down his biodata for me, and this is what he shared with us. He's a consultant psychiatrist interested in how the brain works. Understatement of the century, if you ask me. Interested in brain-based understanding and research in psychiatry. In other words, he dismisses the notion of biological psychiatry because all psychiatry has to be biological. A very respectable opinion. And his special interest is in the area of psychiatric genetics and molecular neuroscience. Even half an hour spent with Bhaskar is always illuminating, scintillating, and you have to be prepared for his harsh criticism for people who don't necessarily agree with him. Over to you, dear Bhaskar, to speak to us.
Yes. Hello everyone. Since it is a 20-minute presentation, I am not going to speak with slides and other things. And I would try to give a basic brain understanding of what yoga does and what it doesn't do. And with that, let's start. First, you have to understand what is meant by yoga by brain, because we have given a lot of name to yoga. What brain understand? For brain, it is a continuous process of sustained attention to internal brain state and external body processes in such a way that brain is in continuous contact with every internal or external environment events, but is not in active interaction with any specific event. So for brain, yoga is a state where it stays in the choice between do and not do. It is in a spectator mode. It is rather, it tries to be in a spectator mode, and it is in active contemplation mode. If that is yoga for brain, then we have to first understand, is it uniquely Indian, or is it uniquely this subcontinent, or it is beyond that? If we go back in history, we'd find out that ancient Sumer, its 5 civilizations, Akkadian, Assyrian, all of them has various contemplative meditative stances, postures, and practices. Then in Egyptian, if we go into Egyptian hieroglyphics, there are various poses of meditation. In Egyptian theology, there is a role of meditation. Both of them are contemporary to Indus Valley civilization. Now, in Indus Valley civilization, there were various seals of yoga mudras and various other things. In Tao philosophy, yoga, meditation, these type of things takes precedent. Similarly, in Chinese, ancient China, in ancient Japan, in Tibet, everywhere there are contemplative practices and other things. So is it uniquely Indian? I would say no. It is a human normal way of contemplation that has given a ritualized name in India, but all over world, every culture that has seen philosophical discussion, that has seen various soul searching, has some or other form of yogic practice in it. Some call it yoga, some call it chematic yoga like Egyptian yoga, some call it something else. But the basic thing remains. So what is the basic thing here? What is the basic thing that brain does in this area? Brain goes into autobiographical mode. So what is autobiographical mode? Autobiographical mode is autobiographical reasoning, autobiographical perspective formation, autobiographical learning, and autobiographical memory formation. That process involves few brain areas. One is midline cortical structures. They come together to form the autobiographical memory formation, autobiographical memory recall, the various autobiographical perspective. They connect with striatum and amygdala and posterior cingulate and precuneus to form autobiographical reasoning and autobiographical motivation. They connect with insula to give the autobiographical processes a perfect understanding of their place of that person in a 3D environment. They connect with brainstem, and the cingulate brainstem network is responsible for maintaining the consciousness as well as self-referential ideas, and ultimately the thalamocortical network and inputs gives us the complete autobiographical experience. And any meditation is continuous process of this autobiographical nature. Now, I would say this is not unique to yoga. This is unique to any work that is being done in that way. So if a painter is painting with all his or her existence, then he is actually practicing yoga. Because at its core, yoga is connection. Connection with the work you are doing. If a healer is completely devoting himself or herself to their work, then they are practicing yoga. So yoga doesn't mean a set of body postures only. Yoga means continuous contemplative thought. And that actually is again pervasive in nature. That is not limited to just a few body postures. Now, what happens when a person reaches that state of continuous yoga? What changes happens in the brain? Brain actually starts working in a specific rhythm. How does brain produces this type of rhythm? Actually, brain has almost 30 plus pacemakers. These pacemakers produce spontaneous activation pattern in brain. Some are in hypothalamus, some are in basal ganglia, some are in midbrains. I would not go into details of them and bore you. But these pacemakers create brain rhythms, and then that rhythms actually synchronizes more and more if someone is into this type of contemplative practice. There are two kinds of mode. One is state, one is state. State means you are actively trying to go into this type of contemplative practice. For the duration of the practice, the brain would try to create a rhythm of itself, and that is state. State actually takes less time to build up. If someone takes 8 weeks, 10 weeks, or 11 weeks, or 12 weeks practice, they can reach the state, but it would not persist. It would go on, and it would break on slightest provocation. And at that time of this state, the various brain network, be it default mode network, be it salience network, be it central executive network, be it temporoparietal network, be it cerebellocerebral network, be it around 500 large-scale brain network that exist in brain, all of them would try to be in sync with each other. But state is a temporary thing. If someone practices this reaching state for a long time, now how long is debatable. Normally, in various literature and various in various literatures and in various research, it has been found out that it takes about 10,000 hours of continuous practice to reach the trait from state. In trait state, the brain achieves synchronization normally. It doesn't need to do active contemplative medication for that, and in their brain, a lot of changes happen. This state and trait trial were done on a group of volunteers and Tibetan monks. So in those Tibetan monks who have attained the trait of meditation and yogic concentration and practice, their brain has larger gray matter volume. Their brain has high level of white matter integrity. Cortical thickness is high. Functional connectivity is high. The neuronal activity at basal ganglia and various other nuclei, it is also high. There is also high level of activity at the hippocampal neuronal area where the progenitor cells are there, as well as subventricular area where the neural progenitor cells are. Ultimately, that leads to increased brain volume, decreased aging, and along with that, increased control of behavioral activation. So there are a lot of mechanisms by which yoga helps in brain control as well as brain volume as well as brain aging. The biggest question would be these changes that are seen in people who practice meditation for a long time, can that be applied to someone who already has a genetic brain disease and is going through psychiatric symptom? There the problem starts, because all the studies that has been done so far in these people have various biases and they have various constraints. There are methodological problems, and so by taking meta-analysis out of these bias studies, we are probably overgeneralizing the effect of yoga in illness. Yoga would be a very good wellness tool for those who practice regularly, who has a strong genetic basis for being able to continue this type of cerebral exercises. Yoga would halt progress of their aging, progress of a lot of illnesses. But that needs to be carefully selected. In ancient India, where a lot of people have worked on yoga, there was a saying that it is dependent on Aadhaar, whether someone would be able to take or not take yoga. Aadhaar means the person's characteristics, the person's brain. Not all brain are suited for this type of cognitive exercises. So when we talk about neurobiology of yoga and when we talk about various other things about yoga, we have to also understand that yoga is now becoming a cult and a fad. And anything that becomes a cult and a fad runs into danger of being overused and being oversimplified. Yoga is not for all being. Everyone who has read Yoga Vasishtha or everyone who has read Patanjali's Yoga Sutra knows that there are multiple warnings in these books about how yoga should not be used in all people. But we are actually not heeding the warnings of this text. So many data that are being now produced is actually not in accordance to the original practice of yoga. With this, I would like to conclude my session, because if I go on, it would take all day, because yoga, the neurobiology of yoga has a lot of material. So over to you.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Dr. Bhaskar Mukherjee. You have, of course, been, very lucid and very short. We know that you have a lot to speak. You don't want to, because there are many other speakers. We are going on this symposium till 6 o'clock in the evening, and there are several speakers.
Yes.
I wish I could listen to you for maybe another hour or so and learn more. But anyway, I just want to say 2 or 3 quick things. Firstly, Dr. Bhaskar Mukherjee, while giving us all the, the neurobiology, has already cautioned us that there is a danger of yoga being overused. And when anything is overused, there is a possibility of it being misused. He didn't use that word, but he gave a caution. He said it is not for everyone. And he said, of course, I don't have any expertise as much as Dr. Gangadhar or Dr. Bhaskar Mukherjee. I'm only saying what he said. He said some of the things which are being done is not in line with the original practice. Thank you very much for cautioning us. And it has been useful. I'm sure the speakers, speakers who are going to come and the discussion, etc., which will follow, will take into consideration some of the points which Dr. Mukherjee has made. As I was listening to him, I was looking at what is written at the bottom. It is written Mad Hatter in a Madhouse. Initially, I was wondering, Dr. Bhaskar Mukherjee is talking about neurobiology of yoga. He's talking about brain. He said he's an activist for psychiatrists. He says he initially thought that psychiatry was one of those humanities branch. It should not be that way. It is a brain science, etc. And what is he saying? He's a mad hatter in a madhouse. Of course, he has said it in a lighter vein. It took my thoughts on to Alice in Wonderland, Hatter, the character, the mercury poisoning with all the hallucinations, shivering, etc. Since he's a neurologist and since he has written Mad Hatter, I thought I'll just make a mention about it. Thank you very much, Dr. Bhaskar Mukherjee. Before I wind up and hand over to Rajashree, I just would like to make 2 or 3 comments. People might wonder, today, in fact, is not the International Yoga Day. International Yoga Day is on June 21st. This is a Sunday before when everybody can attend. And that is the reason why I'm sure Gautam and Rajashree and all have fixed this date. If they have it on 21st, of course, nobody will be there to participate. Everybody will be busy with their clinical work, etc. But then you might wonder, why is the United Nations chosen June 21st as the Yoga Day? Of course, it was proposed by our own Prime Minister, Mr. Narendra Modi, in 2014 in the United Nations General Assembly. The proposal was not voted because it was supported by 177 member countries, the largest ever kind of support for any kind of proposal. And it was in December. The first Yoga Day was on June 21st of 2015. But you might still wonder why June 21st. Anyway, this is, I don't want to ask you. June 21st, people who might know about the length of the day would know that the longest day in the Northern Hemisphere is June 21st. Unfortunately for me, I live part of my time in Australia. The Southern Hemisphere, June 21st is the shortest day. That doesn't matter. The Northern Hemisphere, June 21st is the longest day, and that is why it is long Yoga Day. There are other reasons also, I'm not going to that. And the last thing I want to say is, on this June 21st, the Eastern US time, Eastern Coastal time between 8 and 9, President Prime Minister Narendra Modi himself would be doing yoga along with many other people between 8 and 9 a.m. in the northern lawns of the United Nations headquarters in New York. So thank you very much, Bhaskar, once again for that very illuminative talk and your caution. And back to Rajashree. I know there is no time for discussion. That is why I am not even opening it up for discussion. People can certainly ask questions in the chat box, and I'm sure Dr. Mukherjee will be very glad to answer that. Back to you, Gautam and Rajashree.
Dr. Bide.
So we would like to hear
Bide.
from Ajit Bide sir as well, his closing remarks.
I'm very sorry. I'm indeed extremely sorry.
No.
Please
Nothing
go
to
ahead.
apologize, sir. Just wanted to thank the organizers for giving us this chance. And the research into yoga started really with one small place which was close to my ancestral hometown, Pune, in Lonavala, the Kaivalya Dhama. There were the people who really started research into yoga. And they were keen to know the biology of yoga, but they looked at the periphery. They did not look so much at the central nervous system. It was difficult for them. They did not have the instrumentation for it. Then, of course, there was the big move forward with Swami Rama. Swami Rama is an interesting man with a lot of grandiosity about him, who subjected himself to a lot of research that was documented, first in New York and later on in Kansas with the Menninger Institute. Unfortunately, he also fabricated a part of his autobiography. That's the unfortunate part. But he had a remarkable ability. He claimed, and he's written his work through the Life of the Himalayan Masters. He was a guy who could generate different types of brain waves verified by EEG. Other practitioners of yoga have, to my mind, never been able to replicate that. This was a unique ability that he had. I mean, it's almost like a dog saying, when you say sit, sit, and when you say run, run, the alpha waves, he produces alpha waves. Theta waves, I might be oversimplifying it a bit, theta waves. And he could go into a dreamlike state on command. I think this is a fascinating area, and I liked the Mad Hatter's use of autobiographical as an adjective for various phenomena, including motivation. Thank you for the very lucid and entertaining presentation, dear Bhaskar. And thank you, Dr. Mohan Isaac, for giving me this time. Thank you, organizers, and particularly Rajashree, Gautam, and now Niska.
Thank you, Chairpersons, and our beloved speaker, Dr. Bhaskar sir. Your brain networks definitely start doing little more of yoga when you hear Bhaskar sir and his different kind of takes and inputs. So now we move to the next session, which is a panel discussion. And the theme for this panel is very interesting. The theme says, yoga is a science of inner well-being and solution to many challenges. So let's see from our elite panelists for today that how can various challenges be solved when we get into the world of yoga. For this, we have our very own treasurer, Indian Psychiatric Society, Dr. Aleem Siddiqui, sir, with us. Can we have his CV? Chandan, please share. Yeah, so Dr. Aleem Siddiqui is Professor of Psychiatry and HOD from IRA Lucknow Medical College, and he is Director for Healthy Mind Neuropsychiatric Center at Lucknow.
Niska, I think,
yes,
yeah,
yes,
we are short on
over to
time.
sir.
Let's skip the series.
Yeah. So over to Dr. Aleem, sir, to introduce our chairpersons, panelists, and go
Next slide,
ahead with
please.
the sessions.
Next slide, please. Thank you, Niska. Thank you, organizers. Do we have the other slides?
So you can start with introduction of
Okay.
chairpersons.
Okay.
And
So I'll as first of all welcome Dr. E. Mohandas and Brigadier Azizul Islam from Bangladesh. Both of them are very well known in the field, very well respected. Mohandas sir is known as encyclopedia of knowledge. So I'll first refer to both the chairpersons for their opening remarks. Sir, please, over to you. Mohandas sir.
Yeah, thank you very much. I think at the onset, people have, Gautam, Saha, BNG, Mohan Isaac, they have all talked about International Yoga Day, especially since 21st June 2015. Every year we are celebrating, and this year theme is basically one earth, one family, and one future. And both of them, they have talked about the origin of the word yuj, that means to connect or to yoke into. And basically, it is a union of body, spirit, and mind. And when we talk about the connectedness, what Gangadhar was talking all the time, that is also a part of spirituality when we talk about it. So it's a part of everything. What we are interested in is connectedness. In yoga, what you are intending is self-awareness, attentional control, and emotional regulation. And when we talk about connectedness, what you are going to connect, and you are talked about the symposium theme is inner well-being. Basically, the yogic practice will produce a peculiar type of happiness called eudaimonic happiness, involving empathy, generosity, gratitude, everything come into that, compassion, empathy, everything come into that. And also you know thyself. That is the connectedness we talk about, which generates the eudaimonic happiness, not the hedonic happiness. That is the crux of it. And when we talk about, I think BNG has mentioned about Pradhan, the earliest one, the 8 rungs. And when we talk about what are the 8 rungs, yoga means basically it involves the yama and niyamas. That is the ethical values. You have got postures, you have or asanas, breath regulation, meditation, basically the pratyahara, dharana, and your dhyana, and your integration, that is called samadhi. These are the 8 rungs people talk about it. And we heard from Bhaskar, especially the autobiographical mode of explaining things, especially the neural correlates. He mentioned something about it on insula, not only the posterior, but anterior insula, amygdala. He talked about the cingulate, but basically the anterior cingulate, and he talked about the thalamocortical networks, etc., and many other frontoparietal, etc. network. But when I see in that angle, how you get betterment with any condition. So it is involved, for example, ethical values, that is yama and niyama, your rights and responsible duties, that increases the moral cognition, that your moral cognition networks involved. And previously, B.N. Gangadhar has told about social cognition. That social cognition, I am not going to neurobiology, etc. And not only that, multiple networks are involved when we talk about it. So to talk about the conductivity or neurobiology of yoga, as Bhaskar has told, it is so wide and it involves everything. And Gangadhar talked about oxytocin. That really goes to the affiliation network when we talk about. And also, you have got the compassion empathy network. We have got the default mode network involvement, front operator, every network is involved. I am not going to details about it. So whatever may be thing, it will produce a inner well-being, whether you practice yoga, that should be, the results will be in a continued regular practice, provided you want. Most important, it is not the asanas or especially the exercises that matter much in yoga. That's only a part of it. That will be the physical aspect. But the other one, especially the meditative practices, they are more important, which can get translated into the changes with the imagining mode of whatever literature we do have plenty of neuroimaging literature on yoga and meditation. It's not the time to talk about it. I think the panel, good panel experts, they will be airing their experiences or their impressions. And Alim Siddiqui, a stalwart, especially as a moderator, he will do it. And I will ask the co-chair if he has to mention anything. My friend from Bangladesh, please. I think I will stop short here. If somebody asks any question, we will answer. Right.
Thank you, sir. Brigadier sir.
Thank you, Dr. Alim, for your kind introduction. We have been hearing a lot. He's a very wise man, a knowledgeable and dedicated psychiatrist, Dr. E. Mohandas, who is the co-chair. Respect and gratitude to you, sir. We'll be listening to the panelists. The yoga is the science of inner well-being and solution to many challenges of life. What I believe that the challenges will be overcoming by yoga, and we'll be hearing how to overcome all those issues, because the issues are everywhere. And we had been listening from the previous speaker about the neurobiology of the yoga. What I am believing that once neurobiology has been explained, then probably it will be more and more will be utilized by the physicians, by the clinicians, because the biological model is very important to us. So I have a strong belief that this yoga will be coming in the days. In the coming days, yoga will be accepted by everyone, not will be only considering in the spiritual aspects and other well-being, but in the physical well-being and spiritual and mental well-being, all well-being will be working together. So I'm ready to hear from the panelists, and then if time permits, we'll add one or two sentences in the concluding remarks. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, sir. Thank you so much. And now let me welcome the panelist, Dr. P. Kishan sir from India. He's a professor of psychiatry at Karimnagar. Dr. Venugopal Jhawar, he's president of IABP, chairperson of IABP, runs the Deva Institute, has a lot of experience in the field. Dr. Tirthankar Dasgupta is doing his practice in West Bengal. Is he there? I think he's not there. If he's there, he can tell me. Dr. Ruksheda Saida, we all know her. She's very popular psychiatrist. She's running a Trellis this psychiatry center. She's secretary of Indian Association of Biological Psychiatry. Many other accolades are there. Dr. Debanjan is a geriatric psychiatrist. He's a DM in psychiatry, and then his areas of interest is geriatric psychiatry, and he has a huge number of publications So without going into the detail of the CVs, apologies for this, trying to make up for the time. So I now invite the panelists. I think Dr. P. Kishan sir has a few slides. If we can have them. If Niska, can you share it? The slides of Dr. P. Kishan.
Yes, sir, I'm sharing.
Chandan, please. Yeah. We can go to slide number 2. Sir is already introduced.
Thank you. And with all thanks to my Guru, Dr. Gangadhar and Dr. Mohandas and other senior legendaries here, I am starting because I think organized committee has given only 5 minutes to brief the things. So coming to this yoga, inner well-being, my talk will be brief talk on inner well-being and facing how the yogic person or person who practices yoga can face the challenge in a better way. So in yoga, there are different yoga, and Hatha yoga is there, Jnana yoga is there, Karma yoga, Laya yoga. There's a mantra yoga is also there. So there where I'm also, most of them things I will talk with that. And Tantra yoga, Raja yoga, Bhakti yoga, whatever the yoga, and especially the Hatha yoga, whatever, lot of literature produced by NIMHANS today. The first talk by Dr. Mohandas has given a lot of evidence that the science of yoga. And basically, if you summarize all the things, next slide, please. I think she's not changing the slides.
Please go to the next slide.
Yes, sir. Yes.
Chandan?
Yes, sir. And
Please change the slide and make it full slide.
there are some technical.
Okay. I think you try and I will.
Yeah, just I'm trying, sir.
Yeah, I will talk.
Sir, you can carry on till then.
Yeah, you can continue the slides. You try and try to do the thing because most of my talk is on pictures. So here, the proposed mechanisms of yoga, after summarization of all the findings and demands and world literature, the yoga generally, the yogic person, whoever the practitioner of yoga will imitate the teacher. There, the lot of evidence, lot of even neurotransmitters or peptides, the various yogas. Next slide. Then the oxytocin, it will increase the oxytocin and increase the mirror neuron activity. So in the mirror neuron, now mirror neurons are deficient in the psychiatry patients. So in every psychiatry, there are mirror neurons are deficient. So that mirror neurons will be improved by yoga. Among the mirror neurons, there are sensory mirror neurons, motor mirror neurons, and empathy mirror neurons. So these are very important in the interpretation of the psychiatric illness to wellness. So with both the oxytocin, increased oxytocin mirror neuron activity, the social cognition will be improved, the functional outcome will be improved, their executive function, what are the last steps of our mental states examination, that is abstract thinking, judgment, and insight will be improved. Next slide. I think here not. Yeah, this is the next slide. Please go to next slide. Next slide. So illness to wellness, you can see that the midline is the normal persons. So if you please go back to slide. So if you go to down, there's a severely illness. If you go to bottom of the severe redness, shows the severely ill schizophrenics and all these very ill people, maybe physically ill or socially ill or psychological ill. So if you go to from the middle to top, is a wellness domain. So most of the yoga is very useful for the wellness, but it can be applied in illness also, because we are trying to develop the generic, NIMHANS is trying to develop a generic modules for depression and bipolar and so many other psychiatric disorders. So next slide. So you can, if you see this picture, please go back to that slide, Vishnu slide. If Vishnumurti is sleeping on the snake, that is Nagin, that is maybe Vaski, that Vaski is comfortably sleeping. The Vishnu is the symbolic of the self. The snake is symbolic of the mind. So snake will not stop, it's always moving. So you say na plus agu, that is na plus, that is the Nagin. So who is non-stoppable is the mind. So if you control the mind, you can sleep and you can make the snake as a comfortable bed, that is mind. If you control the mind, you can use the same snake as a comfortable umbrella. So for this, Vishnu is having his vehicle opposite to his, there is a Garuda. If there is a Garuda, the snake almost becomes statue. It smells. If it moves, the Garuda will come and immediately hit that. So this is what the phenomena is. If you do yoga, meditation, dharana, dhyana, samadhi, it improves your seeing capacity. Then you can control the mind. This is explained by this Sheshena Vishnu with Garuda. Next slide. So coming to what is the model of the mind in the Indian culture. So the chariot, this Krishna chariot, everybody knows this. The running mind is the id, the desirous mind is the horses. So ego is the Arjuna who is getting the knowledge. Arjun is getting the knowledge from the Krishna. So telling mind is the Krishna. So in the mind, there's a telling mind, listening mind, and running mind. So for this, there's a Hanuman where if you're going on seeing, next slide. Next slide. This is a self-analysis. Buddha is disturbed. Go back to one slide. Buddha is disturbed. Then he went to sat under Bodha Vriksha in the nature, in the Prakriti. So the Vikruti we came down. Whatever the distortions, whatever the conflicts in his own mind, what is the phenomena is a Muni or Rishi. Most of Indian culture as a contribution of Munis and Rishis. What is Muni? Who practices silence, the Mauni to the Muni. So whoever becomes that silence practice knows the right way of seeing. The meaning of Rishi is the right way of seeing. That is Rishi in English seers. So the Buddha has seen his own mind. So you can train the person how to focus, that is dharana, dhyana, samadhi, on his own mind, that is life. What are the distortions he can see? And what are the hot spots you can see? So how to correct it, how to reintegrate into the mind. This is the self-analysis technique instead of the psychoanalysis of the West. So you can see the body is the temple, the spinal cord is the Dvajastambha, heart is the Garbhagudi, the white matter is the Palasamudra. Is there any Palasamudra at all? You can see the Hindu Mahasamudra or Bay of Bengal, but you cannot see the Palasamudra. Palasamudra is nothing but the white matter of the brain, where the goodness and badness, Rakshasa or Pandavas, are there good and bad thoughts in his own mind. So the Meru Parvata is nothing but your Merudanda, that is a spine. So whatever the sadhana done by sadhaka, which can be sadhyam, that is Amrita will come. So this is the symbolic meaning of this Palasamudra. So white matter is very important in psychiatric illnesses because the connectivity between the different parts of the brain is very important. And not only the gray matter volume is increased by yoga, it improves the connectivity of the brain. So that is important. So next slide. That's the mechanism of this dharana. Everybody knows this V.S. Ramchandran has given the a lot of study on phantom limb therapy. So I don't want to go to the details of phantom limb therapy. Simply by putting mirror, he treated the phantom limb. So if you in the dharana, dhyana, samadhi, or vipassana, or Buddhist technique, or whatever the meditation, you are observing your own mind with the mirror of the unconditioning. Automatically, you see totality of the mind. You can correct whatever the distortions, and maybe psychotic or neurotic, and whatever the things, slowly it will be corrected. Next slide. Next slide. These are the publications. The Gayatri Mantra is a deep therapy I'm practicing in my wellness clinic. for psychotic thinking, and Murthy mantra is for the mood disorders. And this is a publication done by not only mood disorders and neuro disorders, or total acceptance therapy, and yoga and mental health. This next slide, please. A publication by Dr. Gangadhar and myself. Next slide. This is the last slide. So how to integrate this, whatever the advances in the yoga has to be integrated into the clinic. In illness, even though it is difficult, we have to produce a lot of evidence. Unless we are world guru, nobody is going to accept. So we have to produce a lot of research, and we should encourage the young generation to do research. And probably we are having a lot of hypotheses how to prove the things, the methodology we can give. So new generations to come and take up this challenges, how to prove all these things are to integrate into psychiatry. Thank you very much. Over to the Alimji.
Thank you, sir. Thank you. I was worried about the time. Yeah. So thank you, sir, for your insights. Let me now involve other panelists. Dr. Venugopal Jhawar from India. Venu, sir, first let me start. What are your experiences as a person and as a doctor regarding this yoga, inner peace, money challenges, life, the benefits?
See, my personal experience is that I do yoga for 10-15 minutes every day, 4 or 5 times a week. That's all my personal experience. In my practice, last 5 years ago, we developed a small yoga clinic, which is dedicated. And there's a person who is a yoga trainer. He's a BMS guy who has done his BMS from BHU, and he has done his 1-year certificate course in yoga from some of the reputed university. So we have started referring and including in our daily practice. So along with other prescription, we send them for yoga. And this particular gentleman is reasonably very well experienced. So at least we are referring the patients of depression, anxiety, PTSD, and smoking, and then other addictions also. And especially if we see some people with cognitive disabilities, especially with ongoing psychiatric illness, they are finding good results. So, but the major problem which I clinically see is that we all keep on talking about yoga, but I really do not understand that how do we inculcate or incorporate into this our daily practice. That's one of the major issues, because ultimately medication is one part, but then this even when we suggest them simple lifestyle changes that take care of your health, walk, play a sport, or maintain good sleep hygiene, even they do not follow that. So following yoga and yogic, this thing becomes a little difficult. So that is one big challenge which I'm seeing. Since I run a rehab center which is about 80-100 patients, and we do yoga every day, we have special teachers, and we do not certainly encourage psychotic patients to do that. They have other forms. So this is one challenge which I've been coming across, and I really do not know the exact answer that how it can be inculcated. In fact, some of the times we do write prescription also that go to our yoga clinic or our wellness center, and they will guide you. In some of the cases in Varanasi, I don't know, maybe because of increased cannabis intake and for various other reasons, people who are say psychotic, or they have high vulnerability, they start doing yoga, not actually yoga, they start doing meditation, and then they become psychotic. So I always keep them under this thing, caution also. So that is one thing which I have seen, that is which needs a lot of attention, and especially in our population when we have this. Now, one more challenge which I see as a yoga, basically, I think that it should be included into the education curriculum. That is one very important thing which I think, unless and until that is being done, and more than anything else, basically, I think yoga is a lifestyle. It's a lifestyle. It's a way of life, and all the 8-9 points which we discussed, starting from selecting good options and maintaining a good sleep hygiene, developing empathy, socializing,
and then a healthy lifestyle, all are part of yoga only. They are part of the yoga only. So it's not only asana or dhyan meditation. Ultimately, we need to encourage a yogic lifestyle. This is all from me. If you have anything else.
Yeah. Thank you, sir. Very important questions raised by you. Actually, very practical questions also. How to incorporate it? How to incorporate any lifestyle change, and how to incorporate yoga into the daily practice. So, if you have any answers by the end of the panel, it will be so nice. Can I now call Dr. Ruksheda? Ma'am, your experience with use of yoga as a lifestyle, and can you share some experiences, actual real life experiences with patients, what they have as a feedback, what they tell about this practice?
Thank you, Dr. Aleem. And again, I take the opportunity to thank the organizers for having me. Of course, representative of the co-sponsors of Indian Association of Biological Psychiatry. It's a privilege and an honor to be here today. When I was looking at the various stalwarts, not only in terms of psychiatry, but doing actual groundwork with yoga and mental health, I was thinking, what am I going to bring to the plate? And so I thought, I'm being true to my form as a clinician. I'm going to share certain aspects that over the last 2 decades of my practice that I've seen. So initially, when I would start working, especially in my community practices where I see a lot of women, I see, so even though I am set in an urban setup, women having lesser access to everything has always been a challenge. So even at that time, as a psychiatrist, when we are giving them a prescription, maybe giving them a diagnosis, we all know we also have to work so much on their lifestyle. And with the lifestyle, there's going to be behavior modification. And one of the easy way to encourage and seeing to it that would actually take care and get implemented would be suggesting something like a yoga, go to the Yoga Institute. Now that would, whether it would appeal to the religious aspect of it or the spiritual aspect of the people, but it was also important because then they would get permission, quote unquote, and that would, because that's an acceptable thing for them to do from a socio-cultural point of view. So accessibility to lifestyle management and maybe behavior modification, learning breathing techniques that might be beneficial when they are feeling overwhelmed or having a panic attack, or all of those things definitely improve that kind of access, isn't it? Also, a lot of yoga centers initially did offer free teachings and free gatherings, and that was again like a very huge benefit. But what it also does, especially for women, is gives them that opportunity to gather in communities, gather in groups, and that makes it because women work very well when there is a support system that they can depend on as well and rely on, and just connect maybe once or even twice a week. And that had huge implications. So yoga in itself, but yoga in its, practice of it definitely solved a few problems there. What also I think, with my experience, because I work with a lot of young people and teenagers, and I strongly believe in occupational therapy and role of occupational therapy, especially when we are looking at people with neurodivergence. When we're working with occupational therapists, and we, sometimes we know that, okay, again, that kind of practice might be accessible, affordable, or even acceptable by some of the families. And if we work with certain techniques from the yoga exercise part of it and then incorporate in that, that definitely makes a lot of difference. And we've seen a lot of improvement and in cases like that. So definitely the meditative benefits, the physical exercise benefits, both in women and children, are something that has over the period of years, we've seen that that's really helped because, like Sir just before us said, that the mirror neurons and how it improves the functional outcomes, and it improves impacts social cognition, and all of that is true. Having said that, also going back to what Dr. Bhaskar said, that too much of anything might be be a little dangerous. And yes, and like Dr. Venugopal said, that we can't really prescribe yoga as a whole and just write like yoga on a prescription for people. Just like how we may choose a treatment plan for individual people, we also have to be careful and mindful about what kind of yoga practices maybe that we might even be okay with prescribing to our clients as well. A patient of mine, he happens to be an actor and all of that, and he came back and he tried this and he tried that, and he and I both like the same kind of yoga that we like to do, and he came back and said that, oh, Pilates is just poor man's, yoga is just poor man's Pilates. And that really stuck with me as well. So, so a lot of things that, we do see that we keep going back to our roots, and we keep going back to ancient wisdom as well. Again, to just encapsulate what I've been speaking about is that the practice of yoga is more acceptable, more permissible, more accessible to people, affordable to people, especially when we're talking about minorities like women from a gender perspective, or children with special needs perspective. So those are again areas that we might really focus on in terms of how yoga can be more applicable on a day-to-day basis, and how it can enhance our treatment plans instead of replacing it. Because that's again one of the things that we do need to talk about, because when with the advent of social media influencers, when you talk about, oh, save yourself from depression, go practice yoga. So there is that that cautionary note also that we want to say, that yoga is an adjuvant and not a replacement for therapy, something just like how Dr. Venugopal also mentioned. So that I'm going to take, hand it over to the moderator, because yes, we are mindful of time.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you for the very practical, I think, inputs. Let me now invite Dr. Debanjan from India. Debanjan, we talk about positive psychology, some preventive aspects, inner happiness sort of things. So your take on this aspect, does yoga help there, and how does it do it?
Yeah, thank you,
Unmute
I'm
Dr.
audible,
Balram.
right?
Yes, you are audible. The host can unmute Dr. Balram. Yeah, thank you. Please carry on.
Yeah, thank you, Alim sir. And thanks to all the organizers for having me here today. I think it's a great program, which I personally have been enjoying a lot. So I would probably take on where Dr. Saida mentioned in the end, that yoga needs to be understood as or integrated into the treatment protocol or treatment plan that we have for mental health conditions. I would like to highlight two specific angles related to this, since the theme of this topic panel discussion is yoga as a science of inner well-being. So many people, and when in practical experience, when I have spoken about this to many individuals, many patients, many of them try to think it as a sole means of practice of spirituality or a part of a religious practice, which is, of course, can be thought of. But then, as many of our esteemed speakers and seniors have mentioned, that yoga is indeed a form of lifestyle, and that's how we conceptualize it. It's more important as to what you feel and how you are doing the yoga, rather than a particular form or a particular mode of it. That's one. The second is probably, since I work in the field of geriatric psychiatry, there have been several research projects which have spoken about the benefit of yoga on memory, specifically in executive functioning, in short-term memory, in recent memory, in encoding. And that is directly also neurobiologically related to the theta waves and memory consolidation, particularly during sleep. So we can also try today, when we are talking about healthy aging, we are talking about aging well. And that doesn't really start at 60 years, it starts much before. So we also can think of incorporating yoga as a lifestyle form, as an exercise, as a form of practice and lifestyle in this way of healthy aging, because the concept of healthy aging also involves your inner satisfaction with life, your inner sense of well-being, irrespective of all the external factors around you. And especially, I think as a clinician, if we can take this message, irrespective of socioeconomic status, irrespective of religion, to people around us, that as a person ages, the way we prepare them for physical and mental health conditions, the way we prepare them for frailty, as Dr. Ali mentioned right in the beginning, yoga can also be considered to be a very, very important part of preventive medicine or preventive psychiatry. In fact, a few days back, I was going through a program, a WPA program on the section of lifestyle psychiatry, and I heard a lot of delegates speaking about the importance of yoga, irrespective of the form or the way that it is practiced. So when we are developing the models of healthy aging, when we are talking about mild cognitive impairment and prevention of progression to dementia, I'm sure many of you will agree that a lot of older individuals face significant social issues, especially post-COVID, loneliness, staying alone, staying away from their family, frailty, medical conditions, lack of physical activity, lack of mobility. So many of them often ask us that, what if we are not able to follow each of the steps properly? Let's say if we are referred to Surya Namaskar, so you're not able to follow each of the steps properly. But I think, I always tell them that, it's not really dependent on exactly in what sequence or what you are following, but it's important that you believe in it and you start incorporating it in your daily lifestyle and daily schedule. And it's often seen that individuals who did face a lot of problems or stress, they have come back to us telling that, irrespective of what symptoms they had, it has really, really helped us. So as clinicians, as a person who probably has been practicing yoga myself for quite a long time since my childhood, I think that when we talk about aging well, when we talk about, this is the United Nations Decade of Healthy Aging. So I would rather strongly suggest and think and practice this, that yoga can be considered to be a very active intervention, a very cost-effective intervention in not only our daily practice, but also in prevention of mental health conditions, dealing with stress, and building resilience. I remember when we were talking about mental health of physicians at the time of COVID, yoga and yogic practices was a very common inclusion in various countries when the modules for healthcare physicians or frontline workers came in. So throughout the lifespan, across the lifespan, yoga can form a very important aspect of healthy aging and healthy aging practices, especially when a person navigates post-midlife to late lifehood. And we all know that there are several risk factors for dementia. Exercise is one of the preventive factors for it. And a lifestyle intervention, a thoughtful intervention, something having a component of spirituality like yoga can go a long way. Probably I discussed a lot based on my own field, that's a bias, but I thought bringing in the field of geriatric psychiatry and healthy aging will be an useful addition. Thank you. Back to you, Arun sir.
Thank you, Devanjan, for those useful additions. If chairpersons allow, can we take a few audience questions? Srinivas Murthy sir is there.
Okay.
Sir, please. Sir, you have to unmute yourself.
Yeah.
Murthy sir, please. Unmute.
Sorry, because number of people said it's difficult to get people to make lifestyle changes. I want to just share with you something we have developed in the last 2 years with caregivers of people with developmental disorders. We have developed a self-care empowerment manual. This is available, it's illustrated, and I will be happy to send it. I'll put my email, send it to me. It is possible. Only thing is we have to not just say do exercise. We have to tell them what is the benefit of exercise and how they can do that. These three things, if you say, what is the activity, what is the benefit, and what is the way they can do it, and some examples of people who have used it and benefited. All of this is in this 80-page manual and 10 aspects of it. And I won't take time, and I'll be happy to share it with you. And I would like you to use it. It's freely available for you to use it and translate it into your thing. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, sir. Thank you so much. I think we have run out of time because of the time lag. Can we now wind up the session? Or if any panelist wants to make any comments, invite the panel to make any final comments, if any. The chairpersons?
No, basically there is a question, is there any specific yoga for specific psychiatrists? The answer is no. But what is happening basically, you have to have a balance of sympathetic parasympathetic system, little bit more parasympathetic activity. That is why it will augur well for anxiety disorders and mild depression. This is through the baroreceptor mechanism. We do not have time to talk about it. Other physical exercise, you know, it can increase cerebral blood flow and everything. That is asanas. Single nostril, double nostril, and what will happen there, I don't have time to discuss here because time has already gone out. We do have enough literature in the world, and the healthy aging, not only yoga, not only spirituality, also some of the neuromodulation techniques can be used. I think the Banjan is a geriatric psychiatrist, and you can go through the aging research reviews, etc., etc. And enough literature is there. It is almost like psychotherapy. Psychotherapy can be given even to normal people. That is preventive aspect of it. So we can go on, and the mechanism we can discuss, but we do not have enough time. Ali.
Thank you, sir.
From my side only, I want to tell thanks to the Gautam Saha and SAARC EC to include, and Gangadhar sir for including me in our organizing committee as well as the panelists. Thank you very much. Over to Ali.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir, for this wonderful panel. Everyone, over to you, Niska.
So we had a wonderful, as expected, from our elite panelists
Sorry.
Yeah, please.
One line to add, please.
Yeah, you have to.
I want to express my gratitude and sincere thanks to Dr. Gautam Saha for the President SAARC Psychiatric Federation for inviting me and giving me the opportunity to be with the so experienced, so wise chair. And it is a wonderful session. And I have learned also from this session because the panelists were so much strong and wise to express wise. I want to express my gratitude to the person who are involving, who are working hard for the successful international Yoga Day, the programs. So actually mentioning the name of the Dr. Rajashree. What I had been thinking that the non-pharmacological management of the anxiety, depression, or people sometimes ask about the non-pharmacological management. Probably yoga can be one of the answer, and yoga can be one of the way how we can motivate people to come to the mental health services, because there are many stigma about the medicine also, because we are living in the world of stigma, and which is one of the challenges for the mental health service throughout the world. But still, what I believe that this non-pharmacological management can help to overcome some of the stigma, and it will help bring some changes in the mind of the people to come to the mental health services. Hopefully this yoga will be helpful for those who are ignorant about and who are stigmatized about the mental health service. Thank you, sir. Thank you very much for inviting me. Thank you.
Thank you, Azizul sir, all the way from Bangladesh. And we are enriched from your useful clinical takes on this theme. So, Alim sir, anything in the end, would you like to share with us?
No, thank you, everyone. I think everyone, just if you are saying a few things, yoga as a lifestyle change, it has physical benefits. You are developing flexibility of the joints. You are developing balance. and you are having increased body awareness, which may probably lead to less number of falls. So overall fitness level, physical fitness is improved. I'm not talking about the TV yoga that is being taught to us, the actual yoga that is being done. Emotional and mental well-being by incorporating the principles of mindfulness, which we are already doing in therapies. So it is a tested, you can say, a recipe for this. A lot of stress management techniques are there. If you are able to slow yourself down, if you are able to do some grounding exercises, that is there. There is improved focus and attention. So that is the one of the use of yoga. You are more self-aware, so you can develop more of insight, and in certain personality disorder sort of things, you might be able to get help of that. So you try to get balance of your physical world, your mental well-being, and balance all through. I think that is the gist of yoga, and everyone should try to look it up in this way and try to adapt it. Practical things, simple, small things, so that we can all carry something home. Thank you.
Thank you for the useful clinical takes and crux for the theme. So it was a wonderful panel discussion. And now that we are running little late of time. So straight away, I would hand over to Dr. Rajashree ma'am for talk 3 and 4.
Thank you so very much, Nishka, and a very good afternoon once again to the audience. We move on to the next topic, the individual talk to be delivered by Dr. G. Prasad Rao, who is the president of the Asian Federation of Psychiatric Association, and who's also one of the co-sponsors for this event. And for this, may I invite Dr. Nimesh Desai to chair the session. Can I have the CV slide of Dr. Desai, please, very quickly? It's a lot of things to say about Dr. Desai, but can we just have Dr. Desai's slides very quickly, if that's okay?
Can I say, let's save time on that, Rajashree? We can do without that.
Okay, I'll post it in the group, sir.
Right.
And
No,
then
no,
we have Dr. Prasad Rao's slide, and then handed this session over to Dr. Desai, please. Thank you.
Let's keep this. Yeah. Not a problem.
Okay, can we have Dr. Prasad Rao's slide, and the session is over to the chairperson. Thank you.
Thank you.
Shall we begin, Prasad, if you don't mind, without the introduction slide?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Right.
Please.
Thank you. Thanks, Prasad. I'm Nimesh Desai. I happen to have just traveled back to Delhi from Bihar and Jharkhand, and so I'm still on my way back home. Stopped at a place to be able to be here with all of you. All of us know Prasad Rao, and so without saying too much about the gentleman, which there is too much to say, let's listen to Prasad Rao about the topic that the organizers have identified, yoga and spirituality, and I guess role in daily life. And I will reserve, if at all there are a few comments after your talk. Prasad, all yours, please.
Thank you, Nimesh. I think that's beautiful. You summarized quite well about both the topic and myself too. So thankful for you. First of all, I would thank the SAARC Psychiatrists Association for giving me this great opportunity. And we all join hands. We all join hands in this land, in this Karma Bhumi of India, where probably at 2nd century AD, we started having this. As we go about the spirituality, I think spirituality is so strongly associated with yoga. And as Dr. Gangadhar has talked and others have talked till this point of time, the yoga, for example, is just practiced in a regular fashion. And spirituality is nothing, no way different from practicing it in a kind of a very regular ritualistic fashion. That is how I start my talk. And I think the yoga and spirituality if you really look at, for me, there is no difference between the practice of yoga, and I practice yoga as a spirituality all along. Just like I practice my own spirituality, I practice yoga. Now, yoga is not just asanas. I'm sure, I think all the speakers would have agreed by this time, and Dr. Gangadhar has summarized that. Yoga has within itself a very ritualistic practice of everything. To start with, including knowing your body, because essentially yoga comes from a kind of Ayurveda, which was a very ancient medical kind of a thing, which is born in this country. And as we practice, it is kind of Ashtanga, or 8 parts. And in each of the 8 parts, there is this practice of a ritualistic practice. Lot of ancient Hindu literature covers, and especially the mythology covers, about the practice of spirituality. For example, it is said Lord Rama was taught about yoga. One of the most important ritualistic thing which is given very well is actually available in Yoga Vasishta. And in Yoga Vasishta, which is one of the book which is again probably many centuries old, it is believed to be in the 2nd century AD at that time. The spiritualism, which is so closely intertwined. And for me, not only the Hinduism to which I belong, but almost all the major religions in this world, which includes Christianity, which includes Muslim religion, which includes kind of Sikhism, Jainism, which is born out of Hinduism, but more importantly, even the oldest religions in both Egypt and which had a kind of a ritualistic practice. And there are literature which suggests, even in Greek mythology, for example, this kind of spiritualism intertwines very well with the yoga. The Indians' contribution in yoga and the world literature about yoga is probably unsurpassing. But beyond that, today in the last 2 decades, if you see, the literature about yoga and the neuroplasticity in terms of practice, if you really want to go to the evidence, there is really no difference between the changes which occur due to spirituality, the literature in religion and spirituality on one side, and the literature on yoga and the psychiatric science and the neuroscience. It's now converging to be almost one and the same. Especially the most recent literature come from NIMHANS, Bangalore, where it's even tried as a therapy. I would divulge a little bit to just focus on one important topic in the spirituality, that is Bhagavad Gita. And Bhagavad Gita, as you know, it's an 18-chapter version, and both around the world and more predominantly in these parts of the Asia Pacific countries, we are practicing some of the principles of Bhagavad Gita in the translational benefits of the literature. And in a way, to me, again, you cannot divide spiritualism and yoga in any particular fashion. As you see, one of the important component is basically practicing in a ritualistic fashion. And here in yoga, for example, how your body reacts to one particular food and how you should do. There is a clear-cut descriptions of the types of bodies and types of body reactions, etc. But as you go forward, it is very clearly said that you should need this much of water. Again, intertwining very closely with the spirituality practice of each of the religions which are born in this country and in the world. Even the Buddhist, which is one of the important countries in the Asia Pacific region, the yoga is practiced in a kind of a And within the yoga, there are, again, which is applicable for both psychiatry practice and psychotherapy. Having said this, I think it is best for us to conclude that yoga is a method of a spiritualistic practice which should be practiced for a long, and it is not just done for a very short period. For me, it is part of the life. For me, it is part of the, I started practicing this philosophy right from my age of, as far as my mother taught me, from 5th year. And to majority of Hindus who practice this, it is a ritualistic, spiritualistic experiences which we go through. And I myself had a lot of experiences of a bit of ecstasy at times, practicing in dhyana or the meditation, because that has been part of my life since my age of 8 years, if I remember correctly. And so much so, today's world, if today we are remembering yoga as a much ahead of the International Yoga Day, we are remembering it as the necessity of today's life, necessities of today's stress management, necessities of today's world across the all religions and spiritualism. I would like to end with a most important sloka of Bhagavad Gita, which says that Lord Krishna, who is considered to be the God figure, basic thing what he has told Arjuna is, you just practice yoga, and I love the yoga. So I thank you once again, and I over to Nimesh for his comments. And thank you,
Thanks.
Dr. Gautam Saha, and all the world leaders for giving me the opportunity. And greetings especially from Asian Federations of Psychiatric Association. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Prasad, so much. Thank you very much on my own part and on behalf of the organizers. Very quickly, customarily, my big thanks to the organizers without getting into the details. Just a few thoughts. First of all, I don't know if Dr. Vyang Vaya is here, but he happens to be a cousin of mine. And I remember as a medical student in the 70s, reading published articles in the British Journal of Psychiatry and the other international journals by Dr. N.S. Vaya, early 60s, about double-blind controlled trials on treatment of anxiety neurosis with Patanjali's Ashtanga Yoga. So my thoughts go back to that time, and then one got to know more and learn more. From that to what Dr. Gangadhar and a whole lot of people are now doing about advanced research. That's a huge journey, and we have come a long way there. I am reminded of a book that I have just finished reading. I don't know if anyone of you has come across. The book is called Humankind, and it's written by a Dutch historian called Roger Bregman. And I'm going to quote what I think is as precise a quote as I can, and that will link to what Prasad Rao has been saying and a few others have been saying, but at least I want to place on the table. There's always been that history in human existence of the positive and the negative. And I think what Bregman says at one place is, the sad truth is that empathy and xenophobia go hand in hand. They are two sides of the same coin. So as human race evolves in whatever direction, good or bad, or a mixed direction that we are evolving, I guess the need for both yoga and I'll not get into that issue of yoga and yoga, but yoga and spirituality is so much more today than it ever was. It's possible that most of each generation feels so, but do look up this book, Humankind, that essentially talks about how human beings are essentially positive, decent, civil beings, and not the evil kind. Published, I think, in 1921 in English. The other thing that I'm reminded of, spirituality, and I cannot but go back to Vivekananda. I happen to have read a book long ago by a gentleman called Hansraj Rabar, who spoke about the warrior saint. And he analyzed Vivekananda's life story to say, let that not be confusion that a saint necessarily has to be non-responsive or non-reactive. To fight for and to argue for and to advocate for what is correct is as much a part of saint's duty as being at peace and spreading peace and composure and stuff. And I've never gotten over that book by Hansal Dabar on Vivekananda. But essentially, what Prasad Rao has summarized, and I'm sure we'll all agree about, is that spirituality has to be, and yoga is one of those ways of life. And rather than segregating them into compartments and exercises, which we might do for research or clinical application, at a conceptual plane, we'll all agree if there is one message to be taken from here, this entire day's wonderful events, is that spirituality and yoga will have to be a way of life calibrated to individuals. I think, as my friend Rukshada said, individuated, calibrated, suitably applied, and stuff. Lastly, I have learned over the last 20 or 30 years, and I'm sure many of you have differently or variably, that there is also this myth and that we need to dispel. It's not as if yogic practices or meditation is good for every situation. Especially in clinical practice, there are definitive clinical situations and diagnostic conditions where it might not be the best, it might actually have adverse impact. And so I just want to flag that, if we can have a discussion some other time about that. One more time, thanks Prasad very much, and thank you organizers for having me here at this time. Thank you.
Thank you. The Humankind, I just gone through it in the last
I know, such a good book.
Thank you for inviting me. It's a good book, yeah.
Rajashree ma'am?
Yes, sorry. Thank you so much, sir. Thank you very much. Because you're both outside, sort of traveling, both of you, but it's an honor, great privilege for both, all of us to have you join from your remote location. So thank you so very much, sir. Lot of gratitude to both of you. Thank you. We will now invite our next speaker, Dr. Abhay De, for the next talk. And for that, we would like to invite our most esteemed chairpersons, chairpersons for this session, Dr. Nabaraj Koirala, who has been one of the past presidents of SAARC Psychiatric Federation from Nepal, and Dr. Debashish Basu, sir, who is the present director, the head of the department in Chandigarh, and everyone knows them. They are internationally renowned seniors and colleagues for us. So welcome to this event, our chairpersons. And I'd like to hand this session over to you now. Thank you, sir. Dr. Koirala and Professor Debashish Basu. Thank you.
Good afternoon. I'm just taking the lead to begin with.
Sharing, let the chairperson say first, and then we will take the slide up. Chandan? Okay. Let the chairpersons comment. Yes, thank you so much.
I don't think you need to show anything about myself because we are trying to save time. Let's go ahead to the speakers, I believe.
So please share. No, but Dr. Koirala is also here. And
namaste, namaste. Good afternoon. I'm here. I'm listening here. I just joined here. Yeah, Rajashree, I'm here.
Can we now have the same slide of the speaker, Dr. Abhay De, please?
Yeah, sure. So, without delaying, I would like to request Dr. Abhay to start his presentation.
Thank you. Am I audible?
Welcome, Dr. Abhay.
Well, thank you, sir. Namaste. It's a privilege to talk in this forum. I am with a bit of a trepidation. Rajashree, my sister, she suddenly gave me an SOS. I had to recollect my thoughts. And then I would try to share whatever I can. Speaking after such illustrious speakers, Professor Gangadhar, Dr. Prasad Rao, and also others before me, Dr. Mohandas, they are my gurus. And to speak after them, it's very anxiety-provoking situation. So yoga is not, as my previous speakers were saying, not Indian gymnastics. Yoga is very much intertwined with the essence of what we are, the human being, connection with I would not say religion, but spirit, mind, body, and the spirit. And yogic techniques, yogic practices, all of us are doing yoga, karma yoga, going after jnana yoga and hatha yoga practices, the physical exercise and other asanas. So it has been proved by fMRI studies, yoga has been beneficial. It has reduced cortical thinning in practitioners of regular yoga. Devanjan's subject helps in healthy aging or reducing the aging. As Dr. Mohandas was saying, rishis and munis, they are supposed to have lived hundreds of years by practice of yoga and of course mindfulness, meditation and other techniques. Yoga can be beneficial tool in rehabilitation, allowing people to recover from various physical, mental and emotional conditions. Some ways in which yoga can support rehabilitation. It can, and it has been seen to help in physical healing and recovery. It can help improve the strength, muscle strength, flexibility, and even mental strength, range of motion essential for physical rehabilitation. We have seen patients with injuries, patients with surgeries. Yoga can be adapted to suit different situations. There are different positions, different asanas for different. You cannot tell a person with cerebrovascular accident or a head injury to do Shirshasana. So you should do it under the guidance of a competent trainer or at least health professional who is well versed with it. Yogic asanas can target specific areas of body, promote healing and restoring the movement and increasing functional movement. It has a role in pain management. Chronic pain is a common challenge in rehabilitation process. Yogic techniques like gentle movement, stretching, breathing exercises, and other relaxation therapies can alleviate pain and discomfort. Regular practice of yoga has been shown to improve pain tolerance and overall pain management. Yoga allows that person to feel his mind and body in sync with nature, even the whole universe, like the practice of Om chanting. It is supposed to echo through our whole universe. Rehabilitation in specific conditions tailored for suppose conditions like low back pain. Most of us suffer who are above 40 or 50, sitting for hours in a consultation chamber. So joint injuries and cardiovascular conditions, cardiovascular medicine, they are using this yogic techniques in a huge way and they have got benefits. That's why they are going on researching about it. In neurological disorders, as someone was talking about mirror neurons and left-right hemisphere connections, and even patients with paralysis, they have been seen to improve with yoga and the mirror techniques and others, advanced neurological techniques. And work with a qualified yogic therapist, individual can receive targeted guidance and can meet specific needs. And also we developed the improved body awareness and proprioception, helping individuals to develop a deeper connection with their bodies and better understanding of the physical sensations and also limitations. They learn proper alignment, proper postures, proper balance, and reduce risk of further injury. Holistic approach to well-being, you can connect with the whole world, connect with yourself first, inner beings, and then reach out. And what is essential is feel at peace with yourself. Dr. Mohandas quoted a beautiful about the Vishnu resting on the serpent. Serpent as the mind, if you control it, it's a beautiful bed. And if you cannot control or enrage it or go against the systems, if you think of the serpent, it will sting you. It can harm you. Body is like that. And stress has to be managed. By addressing all the aspects simultaneously, you get holistic healing. And yoga is a holistic approach along with medicines, along your psychotherapies, along with other medicines. It helps in holistic healing. It might even help in, it has been seen to help in end of life care, hospice care, end of life therapy. Yoga and spirituality are intertwined. And a minimum physical movement can give a sense of well-being. It acknowledges the psychosocial and emotional impact of physical challenges and provide tools for individuals to cultivate a sense of wholeness and overall well-being. And of course, physical recovery and rehabilitation, as I was saying, pain management, improved mobility and range of movement in patients who movements have been very restricted. And this is causing concomitant anxiety, depression. As Professor Gangadhar was saying, it helps in depression, has been seen to help in some patients in schizophrenia. Maybe not the only treatment, but it's an add-on as we are doing the holistic treatment, tailor-made treatment for personal individual patients. And stress reduction, a lot of work, every one of us know. Yoga and mindfulness and other techniques help in stress reduction and mental well-being, fostering a calm and centered state of mind. But it always needs initially to be done under guidance of qualified practitioner. And I would like to conclude, there are many other techniques for rehabilitation. Yoga is a big help aid in physical and mental rehabilitation in, apart from mental illnesses, other illnesses also, and develop a sense of wholeness and happiness, and be happy with oneself and be happy and feel in sync. We are hearing this word, sync your all your laptops and all, sync with the website, but sync with the universe, the universal consciousness, and feel happy and universal brotherhood. Thank you. Thank you all, the organizers and my chairpersons, and thanks to my gurus who are there.
Thank you, Dr. Abhay. Dr. Koirala, would you like to make any, would you like to make some comments? And then maybe we do have a little bit of time for a few perhaps questions or chat comments. Dr. Koirala, please.
Thank you, Dr. Bosio. Thank you. It's my pleasure to preside the session with you, together with you. It's really a great pleasure for me. And thanks to all organizer team, and especially Dr. Gautam, Rajashree, and Sarnishta and Niska for inviting me. Aveshwar, it was an excellent presentation, very illustrative, in-depth, and highly scientific acclaimed. Yeah, you talk excellent. Your talk was very excellent, very illustrative.
Thank you.
Yeah, I really appreciate you and appreciate your presentation.
Thanks.
Yeah, not only yoga, nowadays it's becoming very, very popular, and many physicians and many psychiatrists and health professionals, they are trying to incorporate yoga in their physical rehabilitation processes, like by neurologists in case of strokes, and in other cases, it's a very effective, and as the literature says, yoga can help to improve the movement, strain the muscles, and to make a mind calm. These are the field, and these have been practiced by many people, many physicians and the psychiatrists. It was excellent presentation. I would like to hand over mic to Dr. Boshu. Can you make some comment, sir?
Okay, I mean, I don't see any comments on the chat box as yet. And anyway, because we are running late in time, this program was supposed to be between 4, was to be finished at 4:20. So we are running about 10 minutes late, but never mind. I think I'll just make a couple of comments, take a couple of minutes. I mean, this particular talk was, of course, was to be on yoga and rehabilitation, but I understand the circumstances under which Dr. Day has made a very beautiful presentation, impromptu, and summarizing and highlighting the important points of the previous speakers, which was quite a feat because there was a lot which has been spoken, said by stalwarts, starting from Dr. B.N. Gangadhar, of course, and then so many other people, which have been summarized very well, picking up the kind of the important points from there. So congratulations. Thank you very much for Dr. Day.
Thanks.
A couple of points. One is that this is not going to be my talk, so I'll just limit myself to 2 points. One is that I am personally not very happy with two phenomena which I find rising. While I'm extremely happy and very, it fills me with gratitude and a sense of satisfaction to see that that there is increasing awareness about this particular non-pharmacological mode of self-fulfillment, because it's not really, yoga was never ever meant to be for therapy, as we all know. Okay, it was something very different, but that awareness is increasing its application and implications in mental health more than in psychiatry. I would say in mental health, in positive mental health, in what nowadays we call public mental health, the population level, the increase in the focus on preventive aspects of mental health, not only preventive, more than that, promotive aspects of mental health. Those are very welcome things, and that of course can help anywhere from prevention, from promotion to prevention to early management to later, that is rehabilitation, and of course recovery. No doubt of the full gamut of that, no doubt about it. The 2 points which make me a bit concerned are, number one, this effort in an effort to popularize yoga, at times I wonder, are we marketing yoga too much? Are we selling it almost to make money? I mean, people of course make money, and there's nothing wrong in making money. But if you observe the Netflix program on Bikram Yoga, the documentary, Bikram was a Bengali chap originally from Bangladesh, from Dhaka, later made his fortune in the US. Till much later, there were other scandals and all. I'm not going into that. That was one specific extreme example of minting money using yoga as a marketing selling tool, which to my mind is not right. That is one. But I can clearly see the trends are there. That is something which we as mental health specialists need to be careful about. Otherwise, very soon, it has already become another tool for selling of quote unquote happiness. Like there's a huge happiness market, as we all know. The second point, which I'm not very happy, is this biologization of yoga. It is as if yoga has to prove itself by saying that, oh, there are fMRI changes. Oh, there are epigenetic changes. And hence yoga must be very good. No. Yoga is good because yoga helps people. Because yoga makes people content, makes people help connect. And then in an effort to understand the brain substrate, which is only one level of explanation. one level of explanation of the biopsychosocial complex. Those explanations are important. I'm not trying to underrate or berate all the efforts which are going on, nothing like that. But it should not be seen as the value of yoga has to be proven through biology, as if yoga has to apologize to biology. Ki, boss, I'm here and you see I'm helpful because I've made a few changes here and there, and I've made a few receptors, hyper. No, I don't think that's a grossly wrong approach. Yoga should help because it helps from prevention, promotion, detection, treatment, management, and rehabilitation, and finally recovery, finding meaning in life in its own place. And for that, biology can help, psychology can help, sociology can help, which we don't much talk about. Meanings can help. All these things are equally important, not just one part. We should not blow things out of proportion. I will stop here. And if there is anything, I think I've already taken my time and I've made my 2 points, both controversial. So thank you very much. Thank you. Say what I have to say.
Dr. Koirala, did you want to summarize, or is a session?
Yeah. Professor Basu has said everything, so nothing has left for me to comment, make any comment or give any compliment. It was a very lucid and very interesting presentation. And thanks to Dr. Abe and Dr. Basu. I would like to wrap up the session. I have nothing to make any comment, except compliment. It was an excellent presentation.
Thank you, sir.
Absolutely. There has been, as you know, with online programs, there are advantages, but sometimes a lot of challenges and difficulties. And we always have saviors. So, and that is what humanity, compassion, working togetherness and connectedness is all about. And the real champions are those who can step in and talk from their real experiences. And such a person is Dr. Abhay. And the lovely 2 chairpersons was Dr. Debashish Basu sir and Dr. Koirala, was so supporting to make this session happen and give us some practical tips from their life. So thank you very much. On that note, I'll hand the session now over to my dear sister Nishka for the next panel discussion. Over to you, Nishka. Thank you.
So thank you, ma'am. And yes, it has been such a learning experience as of now. We had sessions on neurobiology, we had sessions, I think all kinds of discussions relevant to yoga. But now the next panel which we have for today has something very, very, very pertinent to ask. It's rather a question, and it is that should yoga be made compulsory in schools and colleges? So to moderate the sessions, we have with us Professor and HOD of Psychiatry, all the way from Nagar, Kashmir. And he is also President, IPS North Zone. So it's a pleasure to have him as a moderator. And to save time, I would request Abdul Mazid sir to take over this panel discussion and invite our chairpersons and speakers for this very, very, very important discussion. So over to sir.
Thank you, Dr. Nishka, for a kind introduction of mine, connecting all the way from Srinagar to Patna to Kolkata and where not, everywhere in the world. So wonderful day to celebrate, and we have a wonderful panel discussion. We have learned a lot since afternoon. It started at 2 p.m. But we have learned a lot about it. It's not all about religion neutrality only, but it's about lifestyle. And once it comes to lifestyle, I think we need to inculcate them very, very early in our childhood. And that is what we are talking about in this panel discussion, about the children and the youth who are in our schools and colleges. One of the most vulnerable population to stress, at least in the present day era, where they have seen COVID, they have not been to schools and colleges for a long time. 1.5 years, they get glued to their mobile phones and laptops and all. And in such scenario, we have wonderful chairpersons, very senior experienced stalwarts from India. One is from India, my dear elder brother, Dr. Brigadier MSVK Raju, who has been president of Indian Psychiatry Society. He's a stalwart. I think it will take full 15 to 20 minutes to give his introduction. So it would be better that that introduction stays there for some time and we go on to the panel. And next, very important chairperson we have across the border from Sri Lanka, Harishchandra Gambira sir, whom we have interacted quite frequently in SAARC meetings and IPS meetings. He is again a stalwart in psychiatry from Southeast Asia, like Dr. Raju sir is. And before I go on to the panel, may I request the two chairpersons to make the opening remarks, Dr. Raju sir and Dr. Gambira sir.
Good morning, everybody. Am I audible?
Yes, sir.
Am I audible?
Yes, sir, very much.
Am I? Yeah.
Yes, Dada. Audible, audible.
It's wonderful to be with a colleague from SAARC region, vibrant SAARC Psychiatric Federation, and the redoubtable, our own Dr. Gautam Saha. Nice to be together with people, and we are discussing an important topic, yoga and relevance to school. Yoga is a gift to the world from the SAARC region, actually. These originated from here. So that is one important. But coming to the topic itself, I think we need to take the topic in the context of it, particularly in reference to India. I have some experience in the school and students and teachers. We did a study in Jharkhand. And the questions are what yoga and how yoga in school. But before that, let me come to the actual situation in India. We have, say, 270 million students, school-going children, and we have 1.5 million schools, and we have 9.7 million teachers, and we have 270 million school-going children, as I said. And when we want to make compulsory yoga in schools, we need to think of this logistics first. And secondly, what yoga? Yoga, I will take off, I think we, Dr. Devashish Basu and Dr. Bhaskar Mukherjee and Dr. E. Mohandas made very lucid and very telling points about yoga. What yoga? Yoga, I think, getting trivialized, if you ask me. See, yoga, there is a moral prerequisites before you go to yogic practice. Say ahimsa, asteya, satya, telling the truth, non-violence, celibacy, devotion, study, so on so. So-called 10 commandments of yoga in the yama and niyamas. Then you come to the yoga practice, and which is dhyana, dharana, and all those things are there. But just asana and what is pranayama is not yoga. I mean, it's like calisthenics. We are, I think, trivializing yoga. That said, that yoga has higher ideals. Yogic practice does something, you get supernatural powers, vibhuti, and finally reach kaivalya, super consciousness, and all that. But in the school context, I think it's better to restrict to the mundane aspect of it, increasing the concentration, scholastic performance increasing. That should be aim. And what we see in particularly in India is violence is increasing in schools. Nearly 50% people are indulgent in violence. In one study, they found 10% of the students carrying arms into the school, and 60% of the students are dropping out after getting enrolled in the first standard. Before 10th standard, more than 50% are dropping out of school. All these are related to scholastic underperformance. And in this area, probably can be improved by yoga, provided we know what is yoga and what yoga practice. We have some guidelines what sort of yoga to practice. Not making asanas only is yoga. See, like ahimsa, non-violence, satya, telling the truth. How we inculcate these things into the students in the formative. After all, school is the place where the future persons are made. And what we found in the Jharkhand study, when we did in some secondary schools, teachers grossly underestimate their importance, influence on the students. So it is important not only for students as well as the teachers to do some sort of a discipline, mental discipline, if I may say so, not the full form of yoga, which is difficult. Basically, yoga is a preventive aspect, not a therapeutic. Dr. Gangadhar just pointed out in his message that yoga is precaution, meditation is precaution, meditation is cure. So it is mostly preventative, and we can prevent probably scholastic underperformance, violence, and other aspects, discipline. These things can be improved by introducing yoga, provided we know how to introduce, what to introduce. These guidelines have to be well thought out and done. That's all I have to make the comment. Professor Gambira may like to say a few points. Over to the moderator.
Thank you very much, sir. Dr. Gambira, sir, are you there?
Yeah, first I must thank Dr. Gautam Saha for inviting me for this important meeting. I have read about the yoga and its importance in mental health and other things in life. But my knowledge is limited, like Raju or anybody else in this forum. But I am happy to be co-chair with this Raju because he knows everything about it. I'm not going to add anything. I am learning. But one thing that I want to say that the topic is that should yoga be made compulsory in school and colleges? This may be useful or may not be useful. It will lose its spirituality when you teach religion in schools. Therefore, I propose that if somebody wants it, it should be a pilot project and then the result of it and then study the matter whether it should be made compulsory in schools or not. And also, without going to with the limited time, I think it's better to listen to these experts in the panel. Over to the moderator.
Thank you, Gambira sir and Dr. Raju sir, for your valid points made in the initial part of the panel discussion. And as you rightly said, sir, I think we have a very able panel in the form of Dr. Kapila Rana Singhe, who is President Sri Lankan College of Psychiatrists with us from Sri Lanka itself. Then we have Dr. Avinash D'Souza, who is the founder trustee of D'Souza Foundation and is also Honorary Secretary General of IAPP. We have with us as well, I think Dr. Avinash, I could see already, he is in the panel, and Dr. Sandeep Grover is already there. Dr. Abir Mukherjee is a senior psychiatrist from Kolkata. Dr. Amrit may not be able to join. I think he conveyed it to me, and if he joins it in between, he is welcome. Dr. Sandeep Grover, as we know, is a very well-known researcher and professor at PGI MER Chandigarh. My question to all of you, sir, to start with, I can start with Dr. Avinash or Dr. Kapila Rana Singhe. The first one, the same question what Gambira sir actually started saying, that I don't know much about yoga, whether it should be made compulsory in schools and colleges. What is, sir, your take on this? Dr. Kapila Rana Singhe, if you are there, sir. Dr. Kapila, are you there?
I think he's not there.
Okay, Dr. Avinash D'Souza, if you can take up this question.
Well, I think yoga will serve as a useful add-on to the curriculum, but then I have always maintained that it's a very personal experience. So it's not that every child or adolescent in a school may like to do yoga. You know, if he is compelled to do it, he may do it because it's part of the curriculum, but not every child might enjoy doing it or want to do it. So I think I totally agree that we'll have to try out. We'll have to have groups of children who take to yoga. We'll have to try out multiple interventions. But I think one of the most important aspects is that the children who like to do yoga can be propelled to take up yoga seriously. And it could be introduced. I mean, lighter forms of yoga could definitely be introduced as a part of the regular curriculum. And those who show an active interest could then take it up as an auxiliary subject and take it up definitely. So I definitely see the role of yoga in schools. Yes.
Yeah, I think what Dr. Raju sir also said, that it's not all about posturing and having certain physical attire or stature to maintain, but it's about satya also. And I think in my childhood, I would remember that sort of a meditation that would be taught in our schools, to have a good composure, to have a good mental and physical health would be taught. But I think it is going away from our day-to-day practices in schools. And that is why you can see the breakdown in the social networking, and you can see how we are going away from a peaceful society to a very, very unrestful society. Dr. Sandeep Grover, I'm heading towards you. Please, can you comment on this yoga being made compulsory in schools and colleges, or this isn't just an individual sort of acceptability for people to adopt or not to adopt?
Thank you, Dr. Majid. And at the outset, I would like to thank Dr. Gautam Saha and the whole organizing team for having me here. Now, there are different views about whether it should be made compulsory in the schools or not. We need to understand that there are a lot of pros and cons of introducing yoga into the school. And when we make it compulsory, are we in a position to do it? That's the first thing. Do we have enough yoga instructors to do that? That's another kind of a debate. But also we need to understand that yoga should not be linked as if it is some kind of a religious practice. It's a healthy behavior. That's what we need to first understand. I think this whole question, whether it should be included or not, is the whole debate or the panel discussion. We are starting with a question mark, that why we are questioning why it should be included. So I'm against that kind of a debate. I'm saying that if you are thinking this as a religious practice, if you're thinking that this is related to some religion or something like that, that's where we are questioning. If we look from a neutral perspective, its benefit, yes, it should be introduced into the various schools. We all have gone into the physical education training classes in our education, in our school duration. And we all have also enjoyed. Many of the students did not enjoy playing sports, but they would be there in the sports period. So similarly, why not have yoga in the school? That's one way to look at it. But the other way to look at it is, when we make it compulsory, is it going to burden the students? Is it going to tax the student in terms of their academic performance and other things? Those are the issues which we need to look at, and we need to balance whether we need to introduce this into the academic curriculum or not. That's how I would look at it, rather than putting a question mark. I would not like to put it a question mark. I will look at the feasibility part more. Thank you.
Very well taken, sir. I think you have summarized it quite nicely. Dr. Abir Mukherjee, if you are there and if you can come up with your comments, your opinions regarding this.
A very good afternoon. Am I audible?
Yeah, very much, sir.
Okay, very good afternoon to everyone, to all and everyone, and especially to Gautam, Rajashree, for taking this effort to organize this humongous online program. So first of all, my disclaimer is that I know very little about yoga. So that is my first disclaimer. But I see a lot of children in my clinic. I have an interest in child psychiatry. I'm interested in school mental health. So bridging the two together, my comments on this whole issue would be that, does yoga help? And what are the kinds of students or kind of children who would be helped with yoga? Simply speaking, from a psychiatrist's point of view, I think yoga would help in improving concentration. So there might be meditation skills and everything else, and even physical exercises. So in terms of a child with ADHD, or even a hyperactive child without a diagnosis of ADHD, but various kinds of neurodevelopmental issues, yoga might or would help. And we have to look at the evidences, whether there is any evidence available. If not, there has to be studies done. Why I'm talking about studies, I will allude to later. It might help children with sort of neurodivergent children. It will also help neurodivergent children because they have diminished academic abilities, and they suffer from low self-esteem when they sort of get into the main academic streams or main academic subjects. So in terms of inclusivity, yoga might help because they might feel entitled, they might feel optimistic, they might perform in these areas equally or better than the neurotypical kids. So that might be one of the other advantages which are possible. With yoga, also with the yoga exercises, it will help the children to increase their flexibility from a very early age. And that would not only help physically, but also should help mentally. And it might attenuate the immediate reward which children of our times gets from the social media. And we all know about the behavior addictions which are running rampant, not only during COVID, prior to COVID and after COVID as well. So in terms of diverting their attention from this deluge of social media to something more productive, something more organized, something which can relax their brains, I think there might be an advantage with regards to one of the therapeutic options, which might be exercise. Now, coming to whether it should be made compulsory, well, I think all my previous panelists, chairpersons, have spoken in length about it, and I completely agree with their viewpoint that before making compulsory, we have to look at the resources available. We have to look at evidences about how it works. Till then, it can definitely remain an option, a very, very important option. But in terms of making it compulsory, I think it would be too much of a pressure put on the education system.
Thank you very much, Dr. Abir, sir, for very lucid deliberations and discussion about the same. If Dr. Kapila and Dr. Amrit are not there, if they're joined, Niksha or Dr. Rajashree, have they joined, or I will continue with the second round of questions?
So you may continue because
Yeah.
Dr. Amrit has just messaged that he's in some program.
Yeah, he's in
on
another
stage.
meeting. Yeah. No, I think we need to go to the second one. As you said, that it would add to the burden of the people, our student community already. They have big bags on their back, carrying all the way to school and colleges, and especially to schools. So adding curriculum, that too, to the population that we have of students in India, would it be feasible? Number two is that yoga needs teacher training, and it needs resources. We have huge number of schools in government and private sector. Do we have infrastructure really to make it compulsory, or do we need to do something beforehand rather than jump into the conclusions? Your take, sir, on this, Dr. Sandeep Grover. Dr. Avinash, can you first respond?
Okay. Yeah.
Well, I think we do have the infrastructure. I don't think so. It's not there because every school has a hall, every school has a ground, except maybe in the monsoon season where the ground can be used. But otherwise, space is available. But I think what's very important is, again, as I say, that the student has to willingly want to do it. Secondly, also, I would be more in favor of, a general ethics about life, or the, ethical principles of yoga and certain other aspects that could be taught first. Introduce the philosophy of yoga first, and then, look at teaching them how to do yoga. And I think very, very importantly, we need to have trained teachers. We can't just have anybody who can come there and teach yoga. Again, I am not a very ardent reader or knowledgeable about yoga, but definitely whenever we've suggested yoga, I mean, it's not always been the first it's not been the first extracurricular activity that students have ticked. So I think, we need to be a little wise over there and probably give options and try it out. I mean, first with a group that loves it, and then try and see if we can slowly coalesce others to come into the fore.
Thank you, Dr. Avinash. Dr. Sandeep, would you like to add something?
Sir, if you favor yoga, and this whole issue of having adequate number of teachers can be taken care of when you want to teach the student digitally, or by using the so-called having teacher at one point and transmitting the same program across the schools across the country. So what we want, do we want physically a teacher to be present in the class to teach people? Can we use recorded sessions? Can we have a teacher performing at one place and it be transmitted across various schools at the same time? There are different options. my question about feasibility is another one, that when are we introducing it? If we are introducing it at the very beginning of the school, as the child goes to the school, I think their acceptance would be higher. That's where the feasibility will come in. But if somebody has already passed on few years in the school and it comes to him in the, let's say, in the middle years, for him acceptability may be a problem. But if you introduce it right at the beginning and make it part of their life, then I think we will be able to achieve, rather than then we will have less of a resistance. That's how I feel, sir. Thank you.
Dr. Abir, sir?
Yes, so I'm here. So as I understand, there are various forms of yoga. So what yoga are we planning to introduce? What form of yoga are we planning to introduce? What are we aiming at? What advantages are we looking at? Then comes the resources, infrastructure. As Avinash mentioned, there is infrastructure. There is a hall in every school. We used to do PT, as we called it, physical training exercises. So yoga can be introduced. But these are the questions. And say, for example, if we are organizing a kind of exercise in the exercise mode, or the physical yoga, the yoga forms. So is there any advantage of yoga over badminton, for example? So those are the areas which needs to be looked into before saying that it is compulsory. So one activity having a distinct advantage over some other activity and in its various forms and shapes, then only we can say that this can be made compulsory. Otherwise, we have to give choices both to the students as well as to their parents. For very young kids, also the parents has to be empowered in taking decisions on their behalf. So we have to, till such time we have more evidence in terms of that yoga having a distinct advantage over other modalities, be it physical, be it mental, be it recreational. If there is a distinct advantage of yoga over other modalities, and if proper resources are available, then only the whole issue about compulsory comes into place. Otherwise, it is a very, very helpful, but another option.
Thank you, Dr. Abir. Last round of questions. I understand the constraint of time. We know that from research also, the academic the pursuits are helped by yogic exercises and all. But can you throw some light on how does it help in personal and professional life of this this student? He goes on to join the college, then he goes on to get a job. So how does it really help in his personal and professional life, achieving different milestones in addition to the academic pursuits? Avinash.
Well, I think what's very important to understand is that any form of physical activity or any form of exercise that the student undertakes, it becomes a part of his routine very often. So we have students who jog every morning for 1 hour. We have students who swim daily. We have students who probably walk daily. We have students who play cricket or play a sport daily. So yoga becomes a part of their routine. So it's not just about the ethics, but we have people who practice yoga on a day-to-day basis. They get up early, they practice. But I think what's very important is that uh, it is something which I feel still needs to be thought of. We can't just say that somebody who likes yoga can't say, when I do yoga, everybody does yoga, and make everyone sort of do it. I think it's a long way from being made compulsory. It could be an optional part of their curriculum, but definitely I think there are a lot of other things that would also need to be incorporated. And in India, I think I will just add one thing. In India, we always focus on the Sanskriti aspect, which is very important. So we say that there is Prakriti. So when you feel hungry and you eat something that is Prakriti, that is natural. When you feel hungry and you steal something from someone and eat, it's Vikruti. That's not improper. And finally, if you feel hungry, but still you share your food with someone, that is Sanskriti. So we want to inculcate Sanskriti. And I think yoga in some ways can help in that, but it's still a long way.
So, Dr. Sandeep Grover, would you like to
Dr.
add
Amrit
something on this?
Patajashi joined, I think.
Okay. Dr. Sandeep Grover, would you like to add something before I go over to Dr. Amrit?
No, I'll just briefly comment that yoga brings in a lot of discipline. If somebody practices that in their day-to-day life, it improves their cognitive ability and brings in a lot of discipline, which has a lot to do with an academic performance. So from that point of view, it definitely will help the students. So I'll keep my response very brief here. Yeah.
Thank you. Dr. Abir, before we go over to Dr. Amrit.
Yeah, well, I think I've already answered it in my first section, that what are the areas where yoga can be used in children. I mean, what are the conditions where it might be beneficial, and yes, I mean, those are the areas which I would stick to really. And I'll also mention whatever I mentioned in the second section. So nothing really to add from my part, except that yes, it improves concentration, it improves, and in that way, you know, it also kind of channelizes the positive energy of a child. It also helps with, it should help, I don't know whether it helps, but it should help in various kinds of behavior addictions, to temper down again the hijacking of the reward pathway of the brain. And also in terms of neurodiverse kids, you know, in terms of engaging them in some kind of activities where their self-esteem would increase, I mean, in lieu of academics. So these are points which I've already mentioned in the section 1. So I would just repeat it.
I'll go to Dr. Amrit. Amrit, welcome and good evening. We're discussing about the panel discussion you are part of. I understand your engagements. The yoga being made compulsory in schools and colleges. How do you see it?
First of all, sir, if you look at yoga, the advantages are too good. If you look at physical exercises, if you look at mindfulness training, if you look at focusing, concentrating, being oneself, being at peace, a lot of positives are there with yoga, sir. So we have physical education, which has been made compulsory. I was studying in a convent school where moral science was a compulsory activity. The basic issue with yoga is a section of people taking it as a personal thing. And that is where the resistance is coming, sir. Anything which somebody tells that this is my thing, be it a religion, be it a community, be it a state, be it a country, I think somewhere the whole uniqueness of the whole thing gets diluted there. And I think most of the resistance is because of these things. I interact with a lot of people, a lot of things, even though, you know, and finally, when we had Bhaskar talking about neurobiology of yoga, I know it is something which is beneficial for everybody. In my routine clinical practice, I make it a point to tell to people to do yoga. You know, it encompasses both the aspects of life, the physical activity as well as the mental activity. So making it compulsory, you know, you don't have to stamp something as compulsory. You can always add it as one subject, you know, and anything that is added in the curriculum is compulsory. You do not tell it is compulsory. You know, having one period in 7 days on yoga, you know, it comes automatically. And once you find the advantages, you know, people will accept it. People will absorb it in the, you know, curriculum. So even if it starts in a small movement, I think it is increasing. Like the SAARC has taken it up. WP thinks it is worth in. The IPS thinks it is. We are thinking it is worth enough. We are devoting a full day to it. Means there is some positivity. I think not making it compulsory, but making it part of the curriculum is, you know, it's just semantics. You make it compulsory, it is as if you are forcing it on me. You're making it part of my lifestyle. It's just that I have taken a choice. I think then it's a win-win situation.
Thank you, Dr. Amrit. I think you have beautifully concluded, summarized it, what we were discussing so far. And I think we are already 5:10. We'll take 3-4 minutes more before our chairpersons come in for their last. Yeah, sir.
We have Harish Chandra sir. Sir has joined. Yeah.
Dr. Kapila, has he joined?
Majid, can I say something?
Yes, sir. Please go ahead.
So thank you very much. Actually, the topic of this panel is rather big question. Why, whether the yoga should be incorporated or compulsory in the school curriculum. Actually, in this regard, regarding the word compulsory is not very appropriate. Rather, I'm very positive, because yoga should be given emphasis in the school curriculum or daily practice of school. You know, in every school there is a class, PT class. I don't know what happened there, PT class. But in the urban areas, most of the schools are not having a small ground event for outdoor games. In that situation, yoga might be alternative. I know, or you know, the students are negotiating an incredible number of daily challenges before they even walk into their class. In that case, yoga offers a set of tools and practices that help children and adolescents to increase awareness of their bodies, emotion, and cognition, and learn to internally regulate while effectively engaging with their ever-changing world. Research says that yoga can help improve physical fitness, manage stress, improve focus, regulate emotion, increase positive behaviors, and enhance learning outcomes. So, considering all these factors, yoga should be a part of the total curriculum, either compulsory or non-compulsory. That's a different issue. But it should be from the kindergarten through college. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Wazirul Alam sir, for your comments. Chairpersons, respected Chairperson, Dr. Gambhira and Dr. Raju, before we
Can
wrap
I
up
come in?
and
Can I comment
please.
first before Raju?
Yes, sir. Please go ahead.
I remember one important thing what philosopher Bertrand Russell told once. Religion should not be taught in school. If you teach yoga as a religious ritual, there would be a problem in that sense. There are many other tests to add to it, but I don't know to it. The other thing is that if it is added with religious ritual, that's independent of everybody's thought, and it's a personal matter. Therefore, it should not be taught in schools, but he says. The other thing is that there are many religions in multicultural country like Sri Lanka, India. There are many religions. Therefore, all the students and all the curriculum are going to accept it or not. There are problems like that. Therefore, I think if it is taught like religious ritual, there are a lot of repercussions on it. It should be limited only for exercises and things like that. Of course, for rehabilitation, things like that, I totally accept it. But as a school, compulsory, to make compulsory in school curriculum, there are problems in it.
Thank you, sir, for your comments. Before we go on to the next chairperson, I think Dr. Srinivasa Murthy, our revered teacher, has raised his hand. Do you want to say something, sir, before I go to Raju, sir?
Very quick point I want to make. One aspect which has been missed out. See, mental health is being plagued by the stigma of seeking help. Yoga brings body and mind together as a normalcy model. I think this aspect we have to think of it, because most of us are bothered by the stigma that is there, and yoga gives an opportunity for people to think of body and mind together. And this advantage, I think, should be kept in mind. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. Thank you very much. Dr. Raju, sir, before we wrap up and take final comments
just a few things. With reference to Dr. Gambhira's point, yoga is not religion. Yoga is a philosophy. One of the 6 orthodox philosophies of India. It is not related to any particular religion. Yoga is a philosophy. The second is, as every speaker have pointed out, they expressed scientific skepticism and say that to make compulsory or not. Firstly, Dr. Pradhan made a valid point that he studied in a convent school. There was a moral science subject there. These morals are very important. That's what I was emphasizing. The prerequisites of yoga practice is the yama and niyamas, that is the moral practices. They are more important. These days, the asanas are more emphasized as if everything is yoga is asana. That is not correct. So, to the logistics I mentioned, we have such a large load of students and teachers and everything. From the economic point of view, I think First, as a starting measure, probably the teacher should undergo yogic training so that their composure, their behavior toward the students is much more healthier. Because what we find in our small study was that students get look up to the teachers, particularly after the 7th and 8th standard. They look up to the teacher. They want to be appreciated by them. They are get more influenced by them. So in that way, probably we can inculcate these moral principles and healthier behavior in students as a first measure. The second thing, of course, is there what yoga, how yoga, that needs a very careful thought. We cannot decide in 30 minutes of discussion on that. Thank you. Thank you very much for this opportunity.
Can I make one more point, please?
I think Dr. Raju, is he still there?
Can I make one more point, please?
Gambira want to make a point.
Can we take last 30 seconds from every speaker, panelist? Last 30 seconds.
Dr. Gambira makes one point.
Can I make a small point, please? The one other thing to be considered is that the person's duality of body and mind. This has been controversial over last several centuries. Therefore, that also has to be taken into it. Is there a duality or not? That is the question.
Thank you very much, sir. I think 30 seconds last, I think, concluding remarks from all the panelists, sir. Dr. Avinash D'Souza. 30
Well,
seconds.
I think we have to be open to yoga. Let's try it out. Let's see how it works and then take it ahead.
Dr. Sandeep Grover. Dr. Sandeep Grover. Dr. Amrit.
Left.
Dr. Amrit.
Can I talk, Majid bhai?
Yeah, please.
It was a really very nice interactive session. And what I am telling you, there is no doubt there is lots of evidence-based studies that showed that yoga is very much not only helpful for the physical, but also in the mental health. And it is also effective there in the different mental illnesses like depression, anxiety disorder, and all. And we had, with the World Psychiatric Association, had a course on yoga. I think Dr. Pratima, Murthy, Rajashree were there along with me. Dr. Gangadhar was the main person. And so regarding inclusion of the schools or colleges, as all these speakers, esteemed panelists said that the infrastructure is important, but I think if infrastructure is there, if there is nothing wrong in it, I think if it is really have some positive effects, that is most important. I also mentioned in my talk in the initial welcome to address that it is thing that we can connect ourselves, we can connect people by the yoga. Yoga is not a physical education. It is something different. So why shouldn't we should take this advantage if it is available, if the infrastructure is there. And my question is, it is nothing very big, as Abir mentioned, Dr. Abir Mukherjee mentioned, every school has hall and every school has physical instructor. As we can be, there is a yoga instructor like this, then definitely we can include, and it is has some positive effect. It is not only just we are discussing, there is lots of evidence-based studies, as Dr. Gangadhar also in different presentation, we learned it. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Gautam Dada, for valuable comments from your side. I think before we conclude, I have just a couple of things which I learned since 2 p.m. Before I conclude, I have a couple of comments that I need to make. That since morning, since afternoon, what I have learned is that a mnemonic A, B, C, D, E, F, G, that A is that it really helps at a lot as far as academic performance of the students is concerned. B is the behavior. It modifies the behavior, and the bullying in the schools goes down as per the research suggested. It improves the classroom climate between teachers and students and among students themselves. D is that it decreases anxiety and stress among students. E is that it helps in emotional regulation as such. F is that fighting and coping with stress is really, really good once we practice such things. And G is that it improves the general physical health. So A, B, C, D, E, F, G that I have learned since 2 p.m. And I think this panel has been quite lucid in their statements about how to go about yoga and what are the different limitations that we have to go about it and where it should be done and how it should be done. Thank you very much, Dr. Gautam Saha, Dr. Rajashree, Dr. Sharmishta, Dr. Neksha for inviting us. And thank you, panelists, Dr. Sandeep Grover, Dr. Avinash, Dr. Abir, and Dr. Amrit, and chairpersons, Dr. Raju and Dr. Gambira for being present in this panel discussion. It's over to organizers to take it forward. Thank you very much all.
So thank you, our lovely moderator who has conceptualized it in the classroom language of A, B, C, D, E. I hope policymakers are listening as well, and I hope they attended this panel now. So for next proceedings, let me invite Dr. Sharmishta Chakrabarti ma'am. She's here with us to carry on for rest of the sessions.
Am I audible and visible?
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
Okay, thank you so much, Dr. Niska, for doing the MOC so wonderfully. And good morning, good afternoon, and good evening to all the dignitaries who are present here today. And we are celebrating the International
Kindly unmute. You have been muted.
Ma'am, please unmute yourself. Sharmishta ma'am, please unmute yourself.
Can the host unmute her, please? Can the host unmute Dr. Chakraborty? Maybe a technical fault. Shomishadi, just try to unmute yourself again, please. We can't hear you, Shomishadi.
Sharmishta ma'am, please unmute yourself, ma'am.
She has to unmute herself.
Yes,
That's
yes.
the
No,
problem.
she was, so because of some technical hitches, I think somehow she got. Ma'am, please unmute yourself. Yes, yes.
Am I audible and visible?
Yes, yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
I'm so sorry about this technical glitch. From the afternoon, good morning, good afternoon, and good evening to all the delegates who have been present for the last few hours throughout the world. So welcome you all to the next session, and by the SAARC Psychiatric Federation, along with the WPA Spirituality Section, the IAPP, the IABP, and we are really happy that now we have a session, but things are sometimes they don't go well. So unfortunately, we have to do a little bit of change in our sessions because Dr. Rene Samaniago from Thailand had to send apologies as there was a death in his family. So this session is now reorganized. Dr. Rajashree Ray will give an introduction on the theme of this year's International Yoga Day. the universal vision of humanity, and Dr. Nitisha Ojha, a young dynamic psychiatrist, to talk on her real life experiences from the recent cyclone Biparjoy and how only humanity was able to save the people. I would like to call upon the chairpersons, Dr. Professor Ajit Awasthi and Dr. Jayanta Das. The chairpersons, please. Over to the chairpersons, please.
I'm Dr. Jayanta Das is here. I'm here very much here. Sarmista, thank you for
Thank you,
inviting
sir.
me.
Yes, thank you. Handing over to you to start
Dr.
the
Das,
session, and
we should-
Professor Ajit Awasthi as well. Yes.
I think, start the session. So as we have been directed by the organizers, so without much ado, unless Dr. Das wants to say something, since we are already running late, there is nothing much for me to say, except that it's my pleasure to invite Dr. Rajashree Ray. There is some change in the program because the speaker who was supposed to be in this program from Thailand, somehow for some personal reason, he cannot join. So we have a new set of speakers, Dr. Rajashree Ray and Dr. Nitish Ojha, who will be sharing their experiences. So I request Dr. Rajashree Ray to start.
Just a small,
unless Dr. Das has to say something.
Just a small
Please.
comment I'd like
Please
to
go
make.
ahead.
Good evening, office bearers of SAARC Federation, WPA, other participants from the global scenario, participants all over the country, resource person, panelists, good evening to all. And first, I would like to congratulate, especially mentioning about Dr. Gautam Saha and his team for organizing such a wonderful panel discussion and webinar, which really will, it's a kind of a stepping step towards making yoga as a brand, not only for individuals, but as a whole global brand, especially the last session, which I have hard panel discussion and is incorporating yoga in the school curriculum. Now, the present topic itself suggests many things about yoga. Yoga for vision of humanity. Once we talk about humanity, it incorporates everything about human society, including the collective, effort of all individuals. So therefore, this I'm sure going to be a very interesting topic, and it will highlight and give us an insight about what is yoga all about. When we talk about humanity and we club it with some word, it means it has got a deeper meaning to understand. So over to Rajashree for an exciting panel discussion. Rajashree and Nitisha. Over to you, Rajashree. Thank you so much again for inviting me.
Thank you, and a very good afternoon to everyone. Thank you, chairpersons, for giving us this opportunity to speak before this esteemed audience. And of course, as you realize, we have stepped in. So do forgive us, but we hope to make it a real life experience. When we were getting this program together, we always look at, this is the 7th year that we've been organizing the International Yoga Day. And there's always a theme, and there's a beautiful theme behind each of the International Yoga Days. This year, the first theme we noticed, it was yoga for humanity. And very recently, we saw it was also yoga for Vasudevya Kutumbakam. And this actually beautifully encapsulates our collective aspirations for one earth, one family, one future. And earth, family, and future, it's nothing but humanity. Dr. Samaniego, from one of the speakers from the Asian AFPA, was supposed to speak on this topic, but we thought, let's not let this session just while away. Let's talk about humanity, because yoga is not just, we've been hearing about physical postures, it's more on unity, interconnectedness as a society as a whole. And it is this unity, this interconnected, which has brought more than 100 people together, from neurobiologists to actual spiritual people, who have recognized that the fundamental interconnectedness is promoting an understanding a sense of unity and oneness. It is lacking these days. I'm sure we all agree, even if we can't say it aloud. At some part of us, we do realize that empathy, compassion, shared humanity is not there as much it used to be. At the bottom of our heart, we realize that we need to be inclusive We need to be diverse. We need to transcend cultural boundaries, religious boundaries, geographical boundaries, all together as one human being. Why should we not be able to embrace diversity and inclusivity? Why should we not be able to provide a universal vision that recognizes, respects, and values every individual? What are we here today if we are not a human being? Yes, of course, there'll be competition. Yes, there is a process to growth, but not at the cost of hurting others, not at the cost of diverging, becoming a victim of our ethical and moral value, not at the cost of sacrificing our moral conduct, personal integrity, and social responsibility. So this Yoga Day, the whole theme is on humanity, where the mind, body, and the spirit integrates and recognizes that it is not just limited to physical health alone, that it is health. It is the togetherness of emotional, mental, and spiritual dimensions that will lead to a very comprehensive understanding of human nature and promote a vision of wholeness. Who are we if we do not have peace? Who are we if we do not have an inner transformation as a human being? Who are we if we are not leaders in psychiatry? Who are we if we are not doctors who patients look up to us, families look up to us? If we fight within ourselves, first of all, if we do not have inner peace, harmony, and balance, how else can we make others understand? So this is where humanity comes, at least in my definition. It comes through practice of mindfulness, relaxation, reducing conflicts within ourselves. There will be external conflicts, there'll be external traumas, there'll be external wars, there'll be external fights. Do spend a minute in reflecting within ourselves. Are we peaceful? Do we have the strength, the resilience, the compassion of humanity to take us beyond where we are? We need a sustainable living. We need an environmental awareness. Recently, we had the World Environment Day, and I see no difference in when we talk about Yoga Day, when we talk about Environmental Day. It's all living in a harmony where sustainable living is important, and a cultivating awareness and respect for nature, for universe, for each other. And that is the only way we can take our future generations along with us. And what a better example to talk. We've heard talks, personal opinions, but someone who has actually experienced very difficult moments in the last 1 week. Dr. Nitisha Oja, who's also a TED speaker, and one of our young dynamic colleagues, as Shormishadi introduced her. Let's hear from her about yoga and humanity and how she has spent the last week in this cyclone Biparjoy. Over to you, Nitisha.
Am I audible?
Yes, you are, dear. Yeah.
Okay. Good evening, everyone. Thank you very much, Rajashree ma'am, for allowing me to share my experience about this difficult time. Cyclone Biparjoy was here. We live in the coastal regions of Gujarat, India. I'm practicing in Jamnagar. On the 15th and 16th of June, the cyclone Biparjoy hit us, and we had a severe cyclonic storm and heavy rains here. The water coming into the house from every window and door. We were not knowing what to do. But luckily, we were living in the two apartments. We are high-rise building. We have 40 apartments in the 2 blocks. So we have 80 families. So the theme of this International Yoga Day, Humanity, I'll be speaking especially on that topic, how we made these difficult times look easier. You know, the children are very frightened of the thunderstorms and the lightnings. So the young ladies of our building, they are collected and make a decision that we'll be handling the kids one by one in the houses where the emergency lights or the inverters are available, and keeping them engaged so they are not getting frightened. The middle-aged ladies of our buildings, they decided to make food packets, especially for the people who were not able to cook, elderlies. and also for the security guards who were not able to go back to their homes and working day and night to ensure there was power supply, the generator working, the common lights and the lifts are working for whole 2 days without going home. And all the elderlies were taken care, and they were sitting in a group discussing with us about their experiences in the 1999 cyclone they had faced and how did they overcome that things. It was a new experience after the COVID lockdown, because it was like a mini lockdown. In the 2 days we were at home, not doing any practice, but we wanted to help. I'm also a Rotarian, and I'm very proud to say that the Rotract group of our Rotary Club reached out to the spaces where there was cut off due to the rains, and handed out the food packets. Also, one of my friends, she is working in the electricity department. She's an engineer. She was telling me the stories. How is she helping? I have seen the pictures that were circulating in the WhatsApp groups that the power lines have been cut off. The poles are lying down on the roads, and we do not know when the power supply will be back. But she told me the ground reality that the workers working with the electricity board were working day and night to restore the electricity. I was very sure that we won't get electricity for 5 days, but the electricity was restored in the 2 days. Another example, we have a 10-bedded hospital. Me and my husband are working together in that. Before the Viparjoy hit, we were having indoor patients and some were fit for discharge. So we were planning, okay, you can go home. But they said, we don't have any buses or trains. They are all stopped because there was a cyclone coming in. So what to do? So we decided that, okay, you can stay in our hospital, no worries. We will take care of you, your food and everything. Don't worry, we won't charge you any extra, any medicine or anything. You just stay and be safe. So this is my story in very brief. I was given just 5 minutes, so I'll be just ending here. Thank you all for hearing me out.
Well, I think such stories are highly inspirational, because these bring not only hope to us, but serve as an example as how to deal with any adversity, be it man-made or natural, and then how to connect with people who are around you and to share their suffering with your own suffering and your own apprehensions with their apprehensions, and to be a support to all of them. Well, I must thank both Dr. Rajashree and Dr. Nitish Oja for sharing with us their viewpoints and experiences with regard to how to connect with humanity. Dr. Rajashree had a wider perspective with regard to the need to connect with everyone around, irrespective of the diversity that we have. And the young psychiatrist, Dr. Nitisha Oza, had her own personal experiences of the Biparjoy cyclone when it hit near her home, and how the people in that society really work together to support one another. These are inspirational stories, but I wish if Dr. Nitish Oza would have held some yoga classes at that time for the residents of that society, and that would have given them more mental strength and calmness to deal with whatever that was happening outside. Thank you very much. It has been a great pleasure of mine to be in this session, and I will request Dr. Rajashree Ray to give her own inputs, please.
Yes, I think this is because it's an interactive session, though it's like an individual talk session, but similar cyclonic experiences, I think some colleagues from Bengal also had during Amphan. And I know a lot of humanitarian work was done by many of our psychiatrist colleagues who are present here in this panel, from Shormishra Di to Ranjan to Gautam Da and many others. And maybe This is what yoga, this is what humanity is all about. So if you would, sir, with the chairperson's kind permission, if we allow a couple of minutes each to these speakers, I think it will help to bring the stories together.
Surely,
Gautam,
surely. Please go ahead.
thank you, sir. Gautam, because I know you worked in Amphan, similar cyclonic experiences.
Actually, it was a great experience. I think God has given us the opportunity to work for them. And what happened in Amphan, I went to the Pathor Kuchia, something name in Sundarban area with lots of like mosquito nets, baltis and foods all together for them. And I talked to them, but it's good that still there is devastating condition. The people are after that also so happy. We talk to them and they are so happy that people are coming. It is not only me. There are lots of groups, doctors group and non-medical groups also. They came there and they support them like anything. But it is the thing, it is not only what I am telling you, yoga also the same effects. When we do it, it is connecting. We are connecting the people. In the COVID period, we have done 100 days, 3 months consecutively, almost 300 people, we supplied the cooked food. That is the great thing. I repeat it, God has given that opportunity to us to serve people, because this type of altruistic attitude, altruistic activity definitely not only help them, help us also. They also help us to maintain our mental health condition. Thank you, Rajashree. Thank you, sir, Dr. Abasti and Dr. Gombira and all, Dr. Mugesh. Thank you.
Always inspiring. And maybe Ranjan and Shormishchadi, you've been both actively involved in different ways and during the Amphan.
Yeah. Thank you, Rajashree. So my journey started during the ILA in 2009. So I had the privilege to visit in the 4 areas of the Sundarban. I started in Goshaba, then Chota Mollakhali, Bora Mollakhali, and Rangabedia. And in these regions, we do not have the electricity facility at that time and in the evening hours. So we only get the DG generator backup for 6 hours. Thereafter, the entire night we have to spend under load shedding periods. So I had visited in different zones and found that, as you all know, during this ILA as well as in the decade later in the Amphan cyclone, the eye of the cyclone is the most important area where it has been worst hit. And we in West Bengal do not get that fortune that every time the cyclone will pass to our neighbor country, Bangladesh, where Professor Wajul is there, that sometimes it hits very badly in West Bengal too. So we have done lots of philanthropic activities under the banner of Indian Medical Association and Indian Psychiatric Society. So during this phase, we have found that there has been rise in the substance abuse. The people don't have the money to buy the foods. They only get on 20 or 30 rupees in their pocket, but they are not getting, they are involved in buying these psychoactive substances and consuming them. So for this journey and experiences, we tried to give them mental support. I stayed for at least 2 to 3 weeks in this Sundarban Delta during those periods, and I'd learned a lots of experience. And in Indian Journal of Medical Science, we had published the study a decade back. That's my experience. Thank you, Rajashree. Shormishchadi, please, you carry on.
Shormishchadi, if you finally could say a few words, yeah.
I think when we talk about yoga for universal vision of humanity, I mean, Dr. Gautam Saha and Dr. Ranjan Bhattacharya has done a lot of work. I myself, I would talk about my yoga journey and how humanitarian, the vision and the humanitarian touch was found by me through yoga. And I have found that, my yoga practice has increased my resilience, has helped me during my tough times, and has helped me to help others get out of difficulties. Because when during COVID time, during Amphan, during Ayla, when a lot of people were panicking, through my resilience as well as which came through the yoga practice, which I'm doing for the last 7 years regularly, I have got a lot of patience and resilience, and helping other people has helped me to get over my difficulties in this life. Thank you. So anyway, this was my experience, and Dr. Jayanta Das, would you like to give some ending remarks, please?
Yoga by itself is it's nothing different discipline. It's a way of life, actually. The person who practices yoga, it's a way of life. And this way of life teaches us dharya, dhajya, shanyam, and manasik shakti. All these things is we can incorporate or imbibe by the practice of yoga. So whenever we face any kind of a disaster, be it Amphan, be it any Biparja, or even many disasters that we experience in Assam in the form of floods. Everywhere, flood is a major disaster in Assam. So all yogic practices helps us to stand, take the challenge of all these natural disaster or man-made disaster or any challenges in life in a calm way, very peaceful way. We can face challenges in a very peaceful way. We can connect with the people. That is why yoga and the present topic are vision for humanity. So once I can practice dharja, I can practice shayam, I can practice manasik shakti, I can also help other people with full of empathy and with full of emotional resilience. And that is how yoga can probably help us.